Morning, morning, Arlene. Morning, Roxanne. Thank you for the hearts. Thank you, Arlene. J Dimple 66. Morning. Helen Faria Trutman. Good morning to you. Nicola McNichols, my good friend. How are you? Thank you so much. The recount is still ongoing, Nicola. We only got through 2 polling divisions yesterday in 4 hours. 2 polling divisions. We have 56 polling divisions in this constituency, so we continue the count at 9:30 this morning. An exercise in futility, but you know the UNC. Well, you win the election. Oh gosh, accept that now. Anyway. Annette Baird, morning. Thank you so much. Shah, good morning. Truth Speaker 27, morning to you. Don Khan, morning. Mikkel, morning. Proud to be Trini. Discuss, morning to you guys. Vanessa Scott, indeed. Phyllis Farrell, morning to you. Who do we have on Facebook? Anne-Marie Montique, morning. Victoria Cummings, morning to you. Deanne Charles, morning, Deanne. Sarah Richards, morning. Charles Jack, Marva James, morning to you guys. Donna Walcott. Let's get this here. Cyril Mejias, morning, sir. True, the Patriot, morning to you. Alicia Alman de Roche, morning. Morning, Pauline. Just get this here. All right. Victoria Cummings, morning to you. Winston Bachelot, morning to you. We started too early. See, I hear people saying this thing about having to rebuild the PNM. There is no need to rebuild the PNM. You know, I mean, it's a cliche that might sound profound, but there's no need to rebuild the PNM. There's nothing wrong with the PNM. What is wrong? Well, no, let me take that back. What is wrong with the PNM is the should I say supporters, boy? Members, supporters, that's what's wrong with the PNM. And the fact that we find ourselves here again tells me it don't matter what rebuilding you do. They didn't learn in 86, they didn't learn in 95, they didn't learn in 2010, and here we are again. So so if every time we rebuild, it mash up, what's the point? We say great is the PNM, but sometimes I wonder if we're really great. Alana Gonzalez, morning. Pamela O'Connor, morning, Pamela. Denise Bramble, Priscilla Holder, Sharon Reddock, morning to you. What is that? D. Herbert, 576, morning. Susan Cadogan, morning to you. Kay Burrell, morning. Jennifer Nicholas, doing Peters, Lord, morning to you. Ayana Laborde, morning. Sarah, morning. Stacy, Roxanne Semper Scott, morning to you. Janice Hamlet, Glenda Hercules, Christo, morning. Margaret Mark, Shell Hardara Lambert, morning to you. Trisha Tony, Melka Rock, Deborah Etchell. What's his name? Pam Pam, morning. Griff George, Josephine Guy, Elizabeth Jones Alvarez, Gail Jack, morning to all of you. Mr. Frank Kwashi, Joycelyn Smallwhite, morning, Joycelyn. Cheppy 65, Alana Gonzalez. Good show, morning. Yeah, so I mean, we haven't yet seen what the results are in terms of the figures, but I've been able to see a few in some of the standout constituencies, if I might call it that. Kevin Springer, John Edwards, morning to you. Indra Ramsingh Geoffroy, morning to you. Marlene Wilson McNeil, Sharon Williams, Jenny Joseph, morning to all of you guys. Rondon Pear. Right. So when I look at the margin of victory in these critical battleground seats, and I go back to the records and I look at the amount of votes that the PNM got in 2020 as compared to this year, 2020, which was a COVID year when persons were skeptical about going out and, rubbing shoulders or being too close to people. Remember, this was 2020. We were 5 months into COVID when we had the elections, right? And in spite of that, persons went out and they cast their ballot. And there were issues, some of the same issues that were raised in this election cycle, things that happened pre-2020. There was a lot of talk about I think the refinery, the Petrotrin refinery featured more in this election and would have had greater impact this time than in 2020 when it was just 2 years old. Right? That's when you look at the issues. And in my own constituency, I am subject to a recount that was called for by the UNC yesterday morning, right? And how we found out, because one of the tally sheets, that was, I think that's what they call, I can't remember, or the statement of whatever it is, that had to be signed. So the one that came in on election night was not signed. It didn't have the signatures of the polling agents and so on and so on. So my elections officer had to go yesterday morning to request the official one, the one that was signed. And she was informed then that it couldn't be provided because the UNC had requested a recount. So I'm saying, well, what's the point? But anyway, so the recount started yesterday at 3 p.m. We have 56 ballot boxes to count. And we only finished 2 after 7 last night. Apparently, when the UNC candidate came there, he came there under the impression, I don't know if they're fully dunce, they can't count. Mathematics may not be their strong suit, but he's a businessman. That's the profession that he gave. He came there thinking that the margin of victory for me was about 200 and something votes. And in fact, so far, it's 544 votes. All right. So we know that when you have a recount, you might encounter 1 or 2 ballots that you could query. And so the figure might go up by a few, or it could go down by a few, but there is absolutely no way. Because in order for him to win, he has to invalidate 545 votes that were cast for me. And that's not going to happen. If you invalidate 5, I wouldn't even go so far as 10. But you have to be able to invalidate 545 votes to win by 1. That is not going to happen. It cannot happen. All right? But you persist in an exercise in futility. Why? You all win 26. Relax yourself. You all won the election. What more you want? You're so desperate and thirsty to be in parliament. You're so desperate and thirsty to be in the government. Your leader could make you a senator and give you a ministerial post. It's as simple as that. But you're so want to stick it to us in the lower house. Come on now, man. I know, but I know it's more than that, right? He wants to prove a point to the PNM. Because I told you all he was PNM. In 2020, he challenged Nian Gadsby Dolly for the St. Anne's East seat, and he did not get the approval of the screening committee. And so he left the PNM and went to the UNC, where he found favor. So he acted on a couple of occasions as a temporary senator under the UNC, and he tastes parliament. And I don't know if he, but it is the only sure way he could get in, because I'm sure he's aware that there are many wolves hoping to get a senatorial position, because the government has 16 such available to them. We, the opposition, we only have 6, right? And that's it. So you have 13 in the lower house, as compared to 19 over the last 5 years, and we have 6 in the Senate, right? So it's jamming on both sides. We're gonna get. I'm telling it like it is, because when you look at the characters who were able to win their seats, it's going to be a rough 5 years for us. But thanks to who? The great PNM members. Yes, thanks to them. Because in my seat, before I go there, so I get there yesterday, and I mean, at least you call it recount. Treat it with some level of seriousness now. You come in a short pants and a jersey and a Crocs. And then when you realize inside the room cold, you went and get a jacket and put on, looking very unprofessional. Very, very unprofessional. So you're not this, your whole demeanor, your whole appearance says that you're not serious about this thing. You're not serious about it. Everybody on my team are decently dressed. On his team, some other guy come, he's dressed the same way, a short pants and a jersey and a slippers, like while they're going on and going by the bar to take a drink or something. No level of seriousness. We come there, we didn't call for it, but we made sure we got there, we were decently dressed and so on, and these little things matter. And I noticed that. But I wasn't there from the start. But then when I got there, afterwards, my team is telling me how arrogant the individual is. And the simple things that you want to come, because you came there thinking that there was 200 and something votes, and maybe somehow, even at 200 and something votes, you still couldn't win. That is an uphill task. When you look at the history of recounts, that type of margin is still too large to overcome. But you come, they're telling you this. You need to go on the board and you have to go through everything and whatnot and stuff. But the problem is on election night. So my next door neighbor, who is UNC, deceitful as she is, and I make no apologies for saying so. First off, I knew these people are UNC, hardcore UNC. In fact, I told you all before, she was the UNC's candidate for this district in the last local government election. So I know hardcore. I didn't ask you for your vote. I did not ask you for your support, right? Because I knew it would be a long shot even asking. So that's like me knowing I have a whole street of UNC people and still saying, I'm gonna go and walk there and ask for their vote. I know you're not gonna give it to me. So even though we are neighbors, even though we grew up together, I would still not ask you for your vote. They offered. They came to me and offered and say, here now, with UNC, but here's my neighbor. I know you my whole life, we grew up together and things, so I support in you. You're from the area. I say, okay. So yeah, they say, worry, I think. And the UNC don't call me ready to come and work with them. Now I tell them, no, I will come with my neighbor. The man from here. How I could not give him a support. Her brother, again, I didn't ask. Come telling me, hey, we here for you, anything I need. When you get your posters and things on here, you can bring it, we can put it up on the wall and we'll go out and do the thing. He say, I mightn't be able to work with you and thing, but once you need any help there, election day, you need a car to be able to bring out your voters and things. Yeah, talk to me. Every time the man see me, you're all excited and whatnot. And then over time, I realized he started to get a little quiet. His whole demeanor changed. He's not his usual self. I didn't do anything. But I realized, they figure, when they start to hear the talk about the PNM can't win this seat and they ain't going to win that seat and they're going to lose, and they realize the UNC might have a glimmer of hope. All of a sudden, his whole demeanor changed. Didn't matter to me. I never asked you for your support. You offered it. So last night, when I'm coming home now, so they still seem to think that there's a chance. So obviously, somebody will come out. So she thinking he win. So obviously, she all jolly and thing and say, hey, how you going? I say, I'm good and thing. How the count work out? I said, well, we only got through 2 ballot boxes, but it's an exercise in futility. I said, because my margin of victory is 544 votes. There's no way he could win. Basically, her face changed. All of a sudden, because they had, yesterday was the 40 days for their mother's passing. So family members and thing there. When they hear that, All of them. If you see the countenance, it's like, what you see there? That kind of thing. So I said, yeah, so he can't win. There is no way he can win. And he knows that. So she's like, but how come? Because when we checked the night, we was ahead by 1,000 votes. Really? Well, I don't know which polling divisions you all checked. I don't know what information they got. I would imagine the same information we got. And at no point in time were they ahead by 1,000. Unless they were focusing on Karapo, which is where they got the majority of their votes, because Khadija Amin lives in Karapo, and I understand she would have campaigned with Mr. Man in Karapo. And Karapo has always been a difficult place for us to win. That is, in the entirety of the Malabar Mausika constituency, Karapo has the most amount of UNC voters. And so when I campaigned in the area, basically what I heard is PNM neglects this area because they say it's UNC and we don't get nothing from the PNM, which is untrue. Work was done, right? But that's how they felt. So I don't know if they were so focused on, they probably told their polling agents in Karapo to make sure and get them that information, because they didn't really think they would have gotten votes on this side. And I think also they were surprised at the amount of votes that they got in this constituency, because the feedback they were getting on the ground when they were campaigning and they go into the different neighborhoods and so on, people were not coming out to meet them. They were not. And so they focused their efforts in Karapo and one or two other pockets in which they believe the UNC has representation. So yesterday morning when they get to, I woke up, and if you hear noise, I don't know if they went to bed early or whatever, but blowing horn and saying one certain, yeah, UNC win, all right. All right, no problem. So when I got to the school yesterday, where they're doing the recount, some boys sat down there, and you know, again, you call for the recount, but you're not treating the thing with any degree of seriousness. You get up and go outside on your phone to take a call, the count going on, you outside on your phone. Yes, you call for the count, sit down and enjoy the torture of the process. And it is a torturous process. If they decide that they're going to persist with this, if we get through 3 or 4 polling divisions today, and we leave the same time that we did last night, we're lucky. The what's called it, boy, presiding officer, the man there, and he bepping on his service here. He counting the polling cards and he only drifting so, because the man working hard since nomination day. You're seeing it on his face. He's tired. He didn't want to have to go through this. It is unnecessary and a waste of time. But the man sat down there, and the woman who in charge now, and she there, she had to call another one. She said, hey, come on, count the polling cards for this polling division, because I realized whoever the guy's name is, I realized he's sleeping on himself there, because he counted the polling cards and the figure he got was wrong. But you're seeing that the man going through a poor guy, and you seeing that. You know you can't win, but you're still putting the man through that torture, putting everybody through this torture. At least, if that is what you want to do, sit down and enjoy the torture. You can't be getting up and going outside for a whole 15, 20 minutes on your phone. Then you're not serious about this exercise, because it's not like we're putting it on pause to wait until you come back inside. So if you want to make sure, and if you feel you could win, sit down and go through it with everybody. But no, that's how they operate. So we have to now waste time to go back there this morning to endure that. I'm hoping good sense would prevail. Somebody would talk to him overnight and tell him, hey, just concede now. You can't win. But he seems to want to grind his heels in for the long haul. Okay, because I was saying on election night, Khadija Amin put up on her Facebook page about Karapo came out today and Malabar Mausika has come home to the UNC. And I see that, I say, well, what nonsense is this? Because when I left my campaign office at almost 2 o'clock in the morning, we were ahead. So I started out myself now. So I took a picture. I had taken a picture of the results up on the board. So see me with calculator and pen and paper and all kind of thing. Going through, again, counting and say, well, maybe we missed something. Say, all right. Just after 2 in the morning, go and check thing. I say, but I get the same figures. So what? Something wrong. Then I go on his Facebook page and he putting up thing and all who congratulating him. There's another Facebook site called Live One or something like that. They put up a picture with him and a yellow tick claiming that he won this. I say, but all right, let me do this again. Minutes to 3 in the morning, I check in again. I say, all right, let me make sure. Same thing. So yesterday morning, bright and early, I went to my campaign office. I say, hello, pull all them sheets, all those sheets, and let us go through the figures on the board, because apparently the UNC knows something that we don't know. So let me go through all those sheets to make sure that what is recorded on these sheets that are signed off by the presiding officer is what we have up on the board there, and that our numbers are correct. We went through the process about 3 times to make sure all the figures on the sheets match up with what is on the board. So I don't know where they get their figures. So I say, well, we good. We good. Unless we calculating something wrong. And everybody has experience. I'm the least experienced in the team. So clearly, something wrong with them. But I say, be that as it may, we will await the final results of the EBC, because people are ringing on my phone to find out what's going on. You win your seat. You win your seat. If you see WhatsApp messages, what's going on? Because the media is saying they put up a list of the seats at the PNM when I'm not seeing your seat. What will you win? Whole day, I had to be going through this. I said, well, as far as I know, based on our count and the numbers that we got, and I assume it's the same numbers they got, I win the seat. I don't know what it is they do it. So I understand yesterday that the Prime Minister-elect, who is supposed to be sworn in today, would have had some press conference or something or the like, gave some comment to the media talking about Malaba Mausika. They were able to take back Malaba Mausika, or Malaba Mausika came home to the UNC. So they gave her wrong information, right? You put out thing on Facebook, on social media, claiming you win the seat. And I understand a list of promises, all the thing he going and do in the constituency, he going and build a mall and do this and do all kind of bacchanal, right? You put up yourself. You put up yourself. You ain't win no damn seat, but making it see when people congratulating you and all kind of, I just looking at it and I say, okay, I waiting on the official results from the ABC. And then your leader come out now to bumper gum and claim that you all took this seat because this was considered to be a PNM stronghold. And instead, that didn't happen. So you come now to try and see if you could make it a reality by challenging, and you want to come and do a recount in the hope that you will be able to overturn a 200, what you thought was a 200 and something vote margin, only come to realize is 544 votes. Can anybody tell me, the UNC supporters here, the trolls who like to come on, where is the sense in that? No, because my ball, you're bright. 544 votes. You really think he could win that? Well, they're free to try, but I am not going to waste my day going through that foolishness. I have better things to do, right? Than to go and sit down in a cold room to go through every ballot, and then they want to inspect every ballot to make sure the X where it's supposed to be and the X is not so, and it's so, and all kind of challenge. In fact, one of the ladies who was on my team, who was there, she was telling me last time that they had to go through a recount that she was a part of the silly things that they challenge in. And she walked with a copy of the act, which specifies what is acceptable. And their lawyer was Brian B., big lawyer. And when she going through and everything they challenge, and she pull up the act, and she showed them so and so. And Big is like, where you get that? And she's saying, what do you mean where I get? You are an attorney and you don't know how to get this, and so on. But I don't know if he's going to come with Big today, but hopefully he won't, because from what I understand, Big's challenge of ballots is the most ridiculous thing. So that is where we find ourselves. So when I look at the margin for this seat, in 2020, Lisa Morris Julian got over 11,600 votes. Right? Over 11,600 votes. The margin of victory between Lisa and Maurice Hoyt, who was the UNC's candidate, was about 6,000 votes. Lisa won by. But here I am having to sit in a recount because the margin was 544 votes. And when I look at the increase in the UNC's vote tally from 2020, they got about 1,700 additional votes. And a lot of those is not PNM people who voted for them. You had more UNC people who came out this time, right? Lackadaisical, who might have been considered lackadaisical, who tell us, well, UNC can't win this seat in 2020, so they didn't bother to come out and vote. Because I know quite a few of them first-time UNC voters, right? And of course, you would have had those who were not old enough to vote in 2020 and who could vote now when they came out. So that margin, right? So it means about 4,000 votes, 4,000 persons who voted for Lisa in 2020 did not come out to cast their ballot on Monday. 4,000. Look at the margin. But the UNC held their support and added to it. But PNM, 4,000 didn't come out. All right? For whatever reason, they didn't come out. And when we look at across the board, all of the constituencies, the PNM had 100,000 less votes this time around than we had in 2020. But you know what's the most difficult thing? Is that we didn't need those 100,000 votes to win. Because when you look at the margin by which we lost in certain seats, 500 votes, 100 votes, less than 100 votes. So across the 41 constituencies, we needed about maybe 25,000 more, maybe even 20,000 votes or less to be in government. Not 100,000. We could have won this election with 240,000 votes. We got 220s and change. But we could have won it with about 240,000. It's the same thing happened in the United States, right? When you look at, there were 3 states that had Kamala Harris won, she would have been president today, which would have been, I think, what they call the blue wall, which would have been Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And when you look at the margin by which Donald Trump won those 3 states, Kamala Harris, even though she got about 7 million less votes than Joe Biden, 7 to 8 million less votes than Joe Biden did in 2020, she only needed about 260,000 votes to win. She didn't need 7 million. She didn't need 8 million. 260,000 votes would have had her sitting in the White House, and the United States would not be going through the trauma that they have been going through for the almost last 100 days. But they decided to F-A, F-O. And boy, are they F-O-ing now. But apparently Trinidad and Tobago decided they wanted to. No, let me change that. PNM supporters decided that they wanted to F-A, F-O. And they did just that. You can imagine we lose a seat like Point Fortin that has been loyal to the PNM. One of the most loyal seats to the PNM has been Point Fortin. When in 2010, the Point Fortin borough, the 3 boroughs, the 3 corporations that we held on to, Point Fortin, Port of Spain, San Juan Lavantil, those 3. Point Fortin has always been solid PNM. When I look at the margin of victory, Kennedy Richards in 2020, I think the margin was close to about 6,000 votes or so. Kennedy Richards lost this time. And I understand by about what, 100 votes or so? I am certain you had more than that. In that constituency, you could have come out and given, even if it was a win by 1, that would have been 1 more seat in the PNM's column. Labre, another loyal seat. And when you look at the margin, Stephen McClatchy won that seat by a margin of about 3,500 votes in 2020. What we consider to be 2 stronghold PNM seats, the UNC was able to get. Even in 2010, they didn't do that. But this time around, when the coalition of interest is worse than the partnership, they don't have the people, the likes of Winston Dukaran and Carolyn Sipasad Beechan and Jillian Lucky and all of these persons who had some level of decency and integrity to sanitize that they couldn't win those 2 seats. But now that you have people like Philip Alexander and Roger Alexander and the like, that you all were able to rest those 2 seats. The UNC has nothing to rejoice about, for the simple reason they weren't able to convince the population to come out and vote for them. What they were able to do is to convince PNM supporters to not vote. I was listening to a clip just now with Faris's concession speech as he was addressing his supporters. And I think he said the margin by which he lost is about 500 votes. And he made the point there was no significant increase in the UNC turnout, in the turnout of voters for the UNC. What he saw is that PNM people did not come out. PNM people did not come out, and that is the common denominator across the board, not just in the seats that we lost, but across the board in all of our constituencies. When you look at the margin, PNM people have turned PNM stronghold seats into marginal seats. This seat that Lisa won by some 6,000 votes, 544 is the margin. You have turned Malabar Mausika into a marginal seat. And you want, and that making sense to you all. On the basis of what? Not that you were convinced by Kamala's promises, but you vexed with Rowley and you're vexed with the PNM because you don't like the way Stuart Young became prime minister. And all that wasn't democracy and all of that. I mean, you're voting because of that. So you vexed because you vexed with Rowley. So you want to send a message. When we kept making the point to you all, Stuart Young was not the political leader. There is a process for political leader that will take place later on this year. It did not make sense having, and even though Dr. Rowley wanted to step down, we explained to PNM people why it did not make sense to have an election, an internal election, so close to a general election. Because there would have been infighting. Because there were persons who are desirous of being the political leader of the PNM. I know what is worse is that the possibility existed that had we had the internal election, and let's say somebody other than Stuart Young would have won, the possibility existed that we would have found ourselves in the same mess, because one of the persons who may have offered themselves to be the political leader of the PNM is not going to be in the House when Parliament convenes. So we would have had an internal election, person elected, and then you all didn't come out to support in the general election. Person lost their seat, so they're not in the House, so we find ourselves in the same khaki pants. Right? But it made sense for some people to have an election before. And this is the point that we were making. Because we were hearing long before about which seats were on shaky ground. We were hearing that. And we keep hearing this talk about the ground and the ground and the ground. And, and the UNC has successfully been able to market that. The UNC makes it seem as if governance in this country only supposed to be for the poor. It's wrong to do anything to assist or that may seem like you're promoting the rich. Failing to understand that when the rich do well, the economy does well. When the rich do well, as Dr. Rowley said, opportunities are created. But we have been so cultured to believe that the only way the rich could provide opportunities for the poor is opening business and offering the poor minimum wage jobs. But when Kamala Persad-Bissessar tells you she will create 55,000 jobs, how is she going to do that? What type of jobs will she create? Because one needs to understand that to get a job is not just simply to be physically strong. You need qualifications for a lot of jobs. You need experience for some jobs. So most of the jobs that do, and even some minimum wage paying jobs, require you to have some level of experience or some skill set. So as I was talking to somebody recently who was telling me, and have people like trying to help them to get a job, but you ask them, they want work. Do you have any skills? No. Do you have any type of experience? Not really. But you want the decent paying jobs, but you don't have the wherewithal. You don't have the skill set to be able to do these jobs. And you make little to no effort to go and get some of these skill set, to identify a particular job or a particular field that you might want to work in. So even when opportunities present itself, Stuart Young told you all one of the things that he had planned to do was to make it that in all of the constituencies where you have HDC housing units, that the work to maintain these units would be given to contractors in the area, in the constituency. So a platform would have been created for you if you have plumbing skills, you have electrical skills, whatever skills, to be able to go and form a company. Just register a company, register with the OPR, so that you would be able to now tender when these jobs come up. And you know, first preference would be given to you and persons like you. So you could talk to some of your colleagues, some of your friends in the constituency who have these skill sets, and you all could come together and form a company. And then you could bid on these contracts. But no, we didn't want that. We want Kamala's jobs. Yeah? What jobs? You see, it's easy to say these things, all these platitudes. But anybody asked her, so what type of jobs are you talking about? What specific industries are you talking about? So persons can have an idea. So they would know if they need to go and retool. Because it's one thing to create jobs, but if people don't qualify, it's like persons who come and ask me, tell me they're looking for HEC house, and it's years now they have an application inside, and believe that just because you have an application inside entitles you to get a house. No, the house has to be paid for, and you need to be able to qualify for a mortgage to get this house. Or unless you're going the rent to own way. But there are only so many units for that. So some people will not qualify by virtue of their employment. Their income doesn't allow them to qualify. But they expect you to work miracles. Yes, I understand you need a home. But it is not, it's not as simple as that. An application is the first process, but you have to be able to qualify for it. So coming back to the issue of when I see the amount of votes that were cast, and I say it again, PNM people turned, I don't even know if we have any stronghold seats anymore. I don't. Because when we look at the margins, in Arima, 2020, Penny got 7,600 or 7,900. No, sorry, 9,600 and some votes. This time she got 7,056 votes. All right? 7,056. Penny won her seat in 2020 by close to about 5,000 votes. This time, I don't even know what the margin is, but it wouldn't be that great. But we say, great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. All of the UNC strongholds held. When you look at they saw some decline in votes too. But certainly not on the wide margins that we saw in the PNM constituencies. And it wasn't that PNM people voted for the UNC. They chose not to vote. And we always say when PNM people vex with the PNM, they don't vote. And as Shampa Kojo say, only PNM could mash up PNM. And once again, you all have demonstrated that. But the UNC's mantra is, when UNC wins, everybody wins. I see big man cry by my constituency office, by my campaign office on Monday night. You know why? Because they're concerned they are not going to win. Because they work in URP, in the URP office for the last 10 years. They've had a stable job for the last 10 years. They've been able to acquire a mortgage. They're paying for the HTC home, who is single father, have children sending to school, and they're concerned that they're going to lose their jobs. Just as what happened in 2010, when the UNC came in and sent home 527 URP workers on the basis that they figured they were political hires to make room for their people to come in, for all the bubble, all the projects that they give out, the ghost projects. We've heard for years about the ghosts in URP. Big men crying. What I could do? What could I do to comfort them? I'm in opposition. I have no say in anything, right? I can't pick up the phone and call anybody, even except to go and beg. To go and beg. Right? So all who was saying, I was like, I will get them in parliament and I want you to jam them. Ain't no jamming taking place. Don't expect no jamming from me. Because I am only going there because of those persons in the constituency who chose to dip their finger in the ink and cast the ballot for me. I am going there to represent their interests. But I'm required to represent the interests of all in the constituency, whether they cast a ballot for me or not. And I am not going to go there to engage in adversarial politics sitting on the opposition bench to make it more difficult for me to be able to get assistance to do the work that needs to be done in the constituency. So do not expect no jamming from me. I do not have that luxury. When you're sitting on the opposition bench, you have to eat humble pie. Because when you antagonize these people, UNC's governance structure is different. With the PNM in power, you could do that from the opposition bench. You could jam the government. You could say what you want. You could heckle. Because you know why? PNM does still try go in and do work in UNC constituencies in the hope that somehow they could win over UNC supporters. Exercising futility, just like this recount. That's the problem. That's one of the things that upsets PNM supporters who say, well, you're supposed to take care of your own. Take care of your own. Don't study the UNC constituencies. Go when the UNC in power, them and studying all your. Take care of your own. That's what they say. But PNM understands that that is not what governance is. You govern for all. And as tempting as it may be to focus on your strongholds, and maybe that might have been the best strategy for the last 5 years, that wasn't what the strategy was. You try to be equitable and give to everybody to your own peril. So that is why UNC in opposition could afford to cost the government. And they could afford to go out, whether they're inside the house, outside the house, on the Monday night forum, the platform, whatever it is. And they could say what they want. Because they know, with or without requests, PNM in government will do work in their constituencies. But not the other way around. Right? They will starve PNM constituencies for resources. In the hope that what? That they will see the PNM in the PNM constituencies, they will see development taking place in the UNC constituencies, and tell yourself what? That, well, if we go UNC, that we will get the same benefit too. Does it make sense to have, and again, same thing what they did in 2010. Same thing. You all give them a constitutional majority. So they don't even need us. They could pass laws because when Pali done say already, he going on with the 20, they thought it was 28 at the time. So he says that with the 28 that they have plus our 2, we have a constitutional majority. We have a constitutional majority. When we were telling you all the voice note, the video note, the audio notes that were going around, this conversation between Kamla and Fali that they both denied that it was AI and fake. We told you all that. We warned Tobago. Now I'm hearing Tobagonians are asking if Fali and the TPP are going to join with the UNC. Too late for that. Hush all your mouth. You all heard it, but bought into propaganda that it was AI and PNM propaganda. No vex now. So you heard him say, there 2 plus the 28 that they thought they had, or the 27, they have on our constitutional majority to be able to make changes to the THA Act and make changes and stuff to benefit Tobagonians. So we see that there was no AI. There was no PNM propaganda. There was no Photoshop, like Kamla told us about room 201. Right? So all of you Tobagonians who feel betrayed, yeah, well, go and tell the EBC you back your vote now. Go and tell the EBC you realize this product is what's you were looking for? This product is defective. So you want back your vote. Sorry, it don't work that way. Check us back in 2030 when you will have a new opportunity to cast your ballot. But for the next 5 years, UNC, TPP, just as in 2010. But there is no Dr. Rowley in this coming parliament for them to present to ask Mr. Nutsi or the other guy to come on my line and say the worst of things about Dr. Rowley and nastiness about Dr. Rowley. Right? He's not there. Imagine they win. You all won. You wanted to win, you win. But you're still on Facebook every day posting that sort of rubbish. All you win. No need to continue to campaign. Now you're trying to justify why you vote, why you casted your ballot for the US. You no need to do that. You already indicated that for the last how many weeks that you were going to do so. You did it. We're still campaigning for. You convinced who you needed to convince. Give it up. But they continue. I'm not engaging now. I don't have time for that anymore. It is fruitless, pointless to do that. I've been doing that since 2018. I've been telling the party our public relations was weak. Since 2018 on radio, you all have, those of you who used to listen to me at 91.9 could bear me out. I have been telling the party our public relations was weak. The government was doing work and we were not showcasing it. The government is doing good work, but we're not telling the population what we're doing. We needed to do better. Our social media presence was woefully inadequate compared to what the UNC were doing. After they lost the election in 2015, they continued to campaign, meeting after meeting, every week, Monday Night Forum, spreading their propaganda, week after week. And I kept asking, when is the PNM having a public meeting? When is the PNM having a public meeting? Even if we have a public meeting once a month, we don't need to be every week like the UNC, but if we have one once a month or once every 3 months, but I always had to be saying, PNM people suffering from stiff neck. Because we used to be getting a public meeting once in a blue moon. And so we're always looking for the blue moon. Every time you put on here, your neck stiff. Our public relations was poor. Our social media presence was poor. And then even our meetings to speak to our membership was poor. And I make no bones on whoever listening who vexed is all your business. Because at the end of the day, when you do your postmortem or whatever it is, or your analysis as to why we lost and why it is you weren't able to energize the PNM supporters and the PNM membership to come up. Don't just blame them, no. Or let's take blame too. Because there were certain decisions that were taken which was not popular. And in the past, when the government would have taken decisions that were unpopular, the people gave you forbearance. All right? They gave you forbearance, and we were able to navigate around that. In 2020, we should have lost because of the Petrotrin issue, but the government was able to manage that. And it's not necessarily because of what the government did, but other entities would have been able to come and talk about that and stress why it needed to be done. But there are those who say we benefited from COVID in 2020 as well, and Kamala Prasad-Bissessa's nonsense about sunlight will kill COVID, and she wanted the borders open and the risk that it presented. And persons felt that the PNM was the better option because we were telling the people why it didn't make sense to open the borders at the time. But I keep saying, there were issues, there were decisions that were taken that were well-intentioned, but you needed to communicate better with the population. And a lot of times, the UNC was able to craft and to fashion a different story and turn these decisions into being something draconian and nasty and wicked and evil and vindictive. This wicked and evil PNM. We know the value of property tax. When they were in office 2013, despite promising to repeal the Property Tax Act, they came in 2013, the $11.625 million man came and he said, listen, in the budget speech, it is there. It is on Hansard for posterity. It is there that they were going to reintroduce corporation property tax on a phase basis, that they would start with the corporate tax first, and then they would go to the so they start commercial first, then they would go to, I think, agriculture, and then they would go last to residential between 2014 to 2017. There are countless articles with interviews that were done with Larry Hawaii in which he spoke about property tax and why it was important. He spoke about that. Why property tax was important. He spoke about the subsidies. He spoke about the deficits. For 5 years, they ran budget deficits. And he said 2 things could be done to reduce these or to eliminate the deficits and bring us to a state of, to balance the budget. He said property tax, and if we reduce the subsidies, right? The fuel subsidy. Reduce the fuel subsidy. Reintroduce property tax, and those 2 things could bring us to balanced budget where we spend what we spend and what we earn, right? As you see, he said that. He advocated for that. And the reduction in the fuel subsidies is what would have resulted in the increase in the fuel prices. Hence the reason he would have increased, first of all, the price of premium from $4 to $5.75, a $1.75 increase. Right? An almost 50% increase he gave you. And he didn't do it like Imbert did. Let me give you 50 cents now, and then 6 months down the road, I'm going to give you 40 cents, and I give it in increments so the people could get accustomed to it. He didn't do it like that. He gave already full 175 one time. Ram the umbrella up your key packs and open it with no grease. Right? But the fact of the matter is, that needed to be done because the government was spending billions of dollars in fuel subsidies. That you have people who could afford to pay the full price for the fuel, but were benefiting from these subsidies. So that when you all attack the rich and you attack the wealthy, they're benefiting from these subsidies, their pockets deep. Look at the amount of money that they spent on the UNC campaign. And it was interesting. They spent all these tens of millions and maybe even hundreds of millions on the UNC campaign. And it didn't really increase the UNC votes. It didn't. And that is what it was intended to do. But there was also the voter suppression side. So they seem to have succeeded in that. 2010, they did it better this time than they did it in 2010. Because at least in 2010, they were able to convince gullible PNM supporters to vote for them. This time around, the suppression side work, they were able to convince PNM supporters to not come out and vote. And what upsets me, the same thing happened in Tobago for their THA election. When you looked at the margin of victory in some of those districts, I think Ansel Dennis lost by about 5 votes or so. Tracy Davidson lost by less than 100 votes. So the margins were small. And in each of these districts, you had PNM supporters who, had they come out, the complexion of the THA would be different today. But we didn't learn. Well, you're about to learn now. You all are about to learn for the next 5 years. So when you see the drama start, and it's inevitably it will, don't expect me to come and sit down here and talk about that. No, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. I'm not doing it. I've been doing it since 2014. I'm not doing it. Sorry. As they say, how you made your bed, so you would lie. For the last 2 years and some on this platform, it's me, it's Jenny, it's Juliet was doing her thing. Juliet wasn't really active for this election cycle, unfortunately. All right, but she was there in 2020, jamming, Google doing his part, and whoever else, and Eric doing his work, staying up wee hours of the morning doing research and all kind of thing, right? So that we could create content and the like and so on for the pages and all of that. All the other admins as well, who doing their work, staying up, sending stuff. They had UNC cabal, all kind of stuff. Even in the face of all these people who come and tell you, who were part of the UNC, tell all of these people are no damn good. They know damn good. All right? So across the board, persons are now concerned about their jobs. But if there was any truth to when UNC wins, everybody wins, people wouldn't be concerned. But they know that was a lie. That was a lie. But all the promises that they made, right? Prasad Bisasa is supposed to be sworn in today. Whoever her Attorney General is going to be. Wouldn't it be something if it's Anand Ramlogan? Oh, wouldn't it be something if it's Anand Ramlogan? We don't know who it is, but we will find out in a few hours. Because normally the Prime Minister and the Attorney General are sworn in on the Wednesday, and then on Friday is the rest of the cabinet. But it would be something, because I noticed Mr. Ramlogan resurfaced quite recently. He was first seen in a meeting in I think, Tunapuna or Aruka or somewhere there. And then we saw him on... Right. Okay, it seems to be back up. Apologies for that, folks, but, you know, TNTech and the nonsense again, they had a little power dip, and the electricity and the internet went down and it flow. It takes a little while for them to get back in a gear. For those of you who have flow, you know how that goes. Yeah. So I was making the point that your Prime Minister is supposed to be sworn in today, along with her Attorney General. So I know people are waiting with bated breath to see who the new Prime Minister who the new Attorney General would be. Rest assured, Christine Kala Kangaloo is going to be a one-term president. And I suppose that Mr. Khan, who was the UNC's choice, and now they have the numbers, would be, well, yeah, most likely if he's still interested, could very well end up being this country's next president in less than 2 years, in February of 2027. 2027, 2028. Yeah. So, yes, if he's still strong enough, because he looking a little feeble, just like his political leader. Can we also expect to see him get his wish to have the Section 137 triggered to remove the Chief Justice? Now that the UNC is in power, we know that they have their issues with Chief Justice Ivor Archie as well. Mr. Khan has been advocating for that. Okay, Priscilla is telling me she heard the AG is the St. Joseph winner. It would be interesting to see. Yes, so we know that they've had their issues with Chief Justice Ivor Archie. Mr. Khan has been a vociferous advocate for Mr. Archie to be impeached. So we will see if he will get his wish. Now that from the governmental perspective, things are in his favor. All right, so Chief Justice Archie, they say when UNC wins, everybody wins. So be careful. You may not be one of those who is going to win. So I hope that your ducks are in a row. And you can always find employment up the Caribbean, right? I understand our former AG, Reggie Amo, would have been given a Court of Appeal appointment in somewhere in the Eastern Caribbean. So there would be opportunities for you as well. So should Mr. Khan be influential on impressing the soon-to-be Prime Minister to trigger that Section 137 to impeach the Chief Justice. All right, and who they will replace him with? Well, brace yourself for drama. The next 5 years are going to be a very interesting 5 years. We will see it. You know the saying, two Borat can live in the same hole, but it have real Borat and that coalition of interest. So we will see how they will get along. Because as we know, Philip Alexander has been a man who has been espousing a number of policies which he believes kill him dead. He has the answer to fix everything in this country. Some of his policies are adverse to what the UNC's policies are. So how they marry the two would be interesting to look at. We'll see if they are going to repeal the law that made the cotton notes, the $100 bills, the cotton $100 bills that made it no longer legal tender. So we will see if they will reverse that, so that the $500 million in cotton notes that didn't come in will come in now. So that too should be interesting to see. Number of projects that the PNM had in the train that may fall by the wayside. As we know, the San Fernando waterfront project in San Fernando East, which was moving apace, that may be under threat as well. As Pasabi Sessa indicated that she would not be pursuing the housing project and instead would do some industrial something. So we will see how that goes. They've been complaining about rent going to the 1% and that this is a 1% government. Well, let us just take note that the number of new ministries that they intend to bring into play means you're going to have a larger cabinet than you've had for the last 10 years. You will have jobs for the boys, 4 ministries to deal with crime. So 4 ministers to deal with crime. They're going to bring back the Ministry of Justice, and they're going to bring back the Ministry. They're going to bring the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Ministry of Defense, as well as the Ministry of National Security. For a population of about 1.5 million people, we need 4 ministries to deal with crime. All right? But we know that's really just to create jobs for the boys. So all who was complaining about how much money Rowley gets in back pay and how much, just know you, the taxpayer, will now have to foot the bill for an additional 3 ministers for national security, and that's just national security. They also indicated that they are going to create a ministry of AI. To do what? I recall under the last administration, when they were there, they had a ministry of national diversity and social integration. I'm sure not one of the UNC trolls could tell me what that ministry was about, what was its purpose, save and except to try and fluff their way through based on the name, national diversity and social integration. Okay. So we can expect to see that the ministry, they're probably going to bring back the Ministry of Science and Technology and Tertiary Education, take it out of the Ministry of education, again, to create jobs for the boys. Split the Ministry of Works and Transport into two. So whereas for the last 10 years, it has been one ministry and has worked well to create jobs for the boys, again, you separate it. So you create a Ministry of Works and a Ministry of Transport. There's an additional minister that you have to get. All of these ministries need space to be housed. Okay? So where are they going to house them? Regardless of whether they're going to house them in the north, in Port of Spain, or in central, or in south, they're not going to build government buildings overnight, which means you are going to have to rent space for these buildings. Okay? So all of these people who are pumping money into their campaign, who own buildings that are available to be used by the state to house these ministries, will get back their money. Okay? So all who was complaining, oh, Rowley say nothing wrong with the rich getting richer. All these additional ministries, just remember, Rowley didn't have that. The PNM didn't have that, right? So you have some landlords, some people with empty buildings, some of whom their buildings would have been empty for the last 8-9 years thanks to the PNM. A lot of these are 1% owned buildings in Port of Spain that has been collecting dust and cobweb for the last 9 years. Rowley wasn't making them richer. Rowley wasn't putting money in their pockets. Rowley wasn't putting money in their bank accounts. If anything, he took money from them. But I am sure these people are happy that soon their buildings are going to be occupied once again by the state. So I may come on from time to time just to draw this to your attention. All right? When I see these buildings in Port of Spain, that right now, as of today, and for the last 8-9 years, I've had signs saying space for rent. When I see that sign comes down, I know what is about to happen. When I see workmen inside these buildings, all right, outfitting, I know what is about to happen. But all of you hypocrites who for the last 9 years and some have been talking about Rowley and the 1%. Yet have plenty 1% landlords, plenty 1% building owners in Port of Spain who are today in their glee, happy. Look at all the business entities. I'm surprised. For the last 9 years, you had a number on Facebook. There are a number of business entities that I have been following, right? Because they do their advertising and they have some products that I'm interested in. Never see them express anything political. But all of a sudden, as soon as the UNC win, we know who they supported, right? You kept it neutral for the last how many years, because you recognize that you don't want to be out there because you want everybody to come and support you. But now they feel emboldened to let the world know that we support the UNC. Well, you will not be getting my business. All right? So unfollow. When they put up yellow is the code. Imagine that. You are a big business. You advertising. When money comes. So you telling me you don't want my PNM money. Because if you could have remained neutral for the last how many years, and all of a sudden you felt you needed to jump out yourself to let the world know that you are pro-UNC, that yellow is the code, well, all right. But my red PNM money, not good enough for you. So forget that. Right? But they coming out themselves. The racist comments, all you all win. And yet still, we getting the racism. I can't even read some of it for you all. And the government hasn't even come into power yet, and they don't start. Tuesday morning, right? We waiting for the final results because the last polling division to come in was where they counted the special ballots, the early voters, which turned out to be in my favor. All right. So I think I got the most amount of votes from that, 387 votes to the UNC's 189. And while we were waiting, so of course by then we knew that the UNC had won. Mr. Mann's camp came by my campaign office. We were just a few of us there because by then we knew what the outcome was going to be. And one set of whole noise. All they celebrating. They come with a truck and all kind of thing. And, what are they doing here? We win. Go from here. What are they doing here? If you hear them. I'm saying, really? You all win. You have a whole big constituency to drive around, play your music and whatnot. All they're happy. But you choose to come by my campaign office to look for couture and bacchanal, to antagonize us. We just doing what we doing. That is why you all thought you won. When you should have been in your campaign office, checking the numbers, checking it twice to make sure it's correct, instead of making a fool of yourself to run out on social media to say you win when you didn't win. You did not win, but you come, oh, we win, what are you doing here? And if you hear them, mother so and all kind of thing, carrying on. I tell them, so let's just close that door for me, please, because these people, we don't know what they're capable of. Like, we will stay inside. And pay them outside and they play the music and carrying on and thing and whatnot, and then they go down the road. Uncalled for. Totally uncouth. I continue to say the UNC camp is a basket of deplorables, and if all your vex, that's all your business. That's all your business, because that's exactly what it is. Your behavior over the last 2 days has been deplorable. Nobody is saying you all can't celebrate. Celebrate. But that celebration ought not to be that you're trying to intimidate people and engaging in that type of behavior. If you all had lost, we would have still gotten the racist comments. You all win, and we still getting the racist comments. About, oh, all they win now and N-word and all they going and take back, all they coming to take back all their jobs and all these kind of things. Well, okay. No problem. It is what it is. But I can tell you, they say Vox Populi, Vox Dei. This is not the voice of God. Miss me with that. This ain't no voice of God. All they want. They'll say, well, go ahead. Go ahead. Righteousness exalts a nation. But what does sin do? All right. Ain't no way. We say no voice of God. Because I could tell you, it had plenty PNM prayer warriors. Plenty. How many houses I went by and people say, I'm praying for you, I'm praying for the party, I'm praying hard every day, I'm praying. Prayers of the righteous availeth much. So this, not when you have a man could see a woman in grief and refer to her as a deceitful, a wicked and deceitful, you know what, you all recall. Yeah? And he has prospects of being a minister. Well, if he doesn't get a ministerial post, well, oh Lord, Father, look, all hell going on break loose here today. I pray, Lord, that we will not, that Kamala will let good sense prevail and she would not give us Anil Roberts as Minister of Sports. Again, please, don't do that. Don't do that, Nakamala. We're begging you. We're begging you. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you want to leave him in the Senate and just let him be an ordinary senator and he could rah-rah in the Senate, but oh God, don't force that man on us in no ministerial position. Please. We're begging you. We don't want another life sport. Right now, Malaba Mausika, formerly Dabadi Omera, is recovering and recovering well from the onslaught of Hurricane Anil. We do not want Anil Roberts as Minister of Sport coming back into this community to undo the work that has been done, to fix, to repair the damage that he did when he was here. Please, there are sporting facilities in this community, in this constituency that needs to be addressed, that I intended to address, had PNM supporters not once again let us down. All right? Had they not let us down for yet another time, it was my intention to address these things for the benefit of the young people in the constituency. And I gave a commitment to these young people that I would do that. And therefore, right now, as it seems, in order to be able to get that done, I'm going to have to go and beg whoever is the Minister of Sport, Lord, let it not be Anil Roberts. I can't stand the man. I cannot. And I really want to do this for these young people, but they'll have to forgive me. If there's one person I am not going and beg, it's Anil Roberts. I don't want nothing to do with that man. I had to find some other way to do it, but I'm not. I am not going on that road. And I know if Kamala makes that mistake, well, we will see how that goes, right? So we could see the return of the box screen government. Because remember, that's how they gave contracts to the questionable elements. Might be a little more difficult for them this time because the procurement legislation makes it a little more difficult for them to just give out contracts, right? So they were the ones who said that this government, outgoing, would have watered down the procurement regulation law. So if all they said it was watered down, well, you all have the majority now. You don't need our support. Bring the amendments and strengthen it. Yeah? Concentrate it. I bet you they're not going to. All the noise that they make, they water down the procurement legislation, it is, you all have the numbers to bring your amendments and pass it and strengthen it. So all the areas that you say we water down, come and strengthen it, come and fix it. But it reminds me of 2010 when they were making all the noise with respect to the Freedom of Information Act, and they said that Mr. Manning included certain things that he made that were, oh gosh, exempt. And all this thing, and they do that because they want to hide this and hide that. They came into office, they didn't fix it. All the things that they say Manning made exempt so that they could hide information. Did they come and amend the law to make these things non-exempt? No, they left it just as it was. Just as it was. So I don't really expect to see them making any changes to the procurement legislation to make it stronger, which would only make it more difficult for them to be able to thief, to give contracts to their friends, family, and financiers, because rest assured, all them people who spend the millions and tens of millions to fund their campaign, they come in for the £1.50 of flesh. Not a pound of flesh, you know. They want £1.50 because they want interest on what they spent. Okay? So them and play. They're not playing. So we are going back to the days of inflated invoices, inflated prices for projects. So the QREP interchange that the PNM, the wicked and evil, incompetent PNM delivered to you for 221 million, and they said it was 502. We're going back to the days of 502 million. The Brian Lara Stadium that this wicked and evil and incompetent PNM delivered to you, that for 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days under them remained empty, unused, rusting, and they tell you it couldn't be fixed. And then they come and tell you it will take 190 million to fix. Your PNM government fixed it for 89 million. Your outgoing incompetent PNM government did it for, $101 million less than the UNC told you it would cost to fix. Right? 101 million less. But we're going back to the days of the 190 instead of the 89. I'm just reminding you all what is to come. We've gone past of reminding you all of what ought not to come. You all gave them the opportunity, so now I'm reminding you of what is to come. We're going back to the days of Napa, where they tell you it's 100 million plus to fix the defects, and they shut down Napa for 2 years. This administration came in, and in the space of 6 months, problems fixed, 20 million. Napa has been running well since then. So we're going back to the days. President's house, they told you 169 million to fix. This government did it for 89 million. The president has been occupying the residence since 2020. We're going back to the days of the 169 instead of the 89. Okay? Going back to those days. We're going back to the days of big budgets, $65 billion budgets, instead of the conservative 57 and 58, because we don't have the money. But for the next 5 years, when they can't deliver on the many promises that they made, and I will remind persons, because remember they say, oh, the PNM make how much promises, and Winston Bachelor loves to tell us the PNM delivered less than 50% of the promises. Well, I hope he will be honest enough. I wouldn't be on as often, but if and when I do decide to come on, I hope Mr. Bachelor will be honest enough to come on and tell us what percentage of the promises they didn't fulfill. And I hope he would not be so dishonest and disingenuous to come here and tell us that it's because the PNM left the treasury empty and the PNM thief out the money, and that is why the UNC is not able to deliver on their promises. Right? I hope he will be honest enough to do that, but I doubt it very much, because I'm certain he already has a manual of excuses to make for when they don't deliver. And all we're going to be hearing for the next 5 years is Rowley, 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 Rowley. For the last 10 years, all they're doing is blame Kamala, blame Kamala, blame Kamala. But for the next 5 years, all we'll be hearing is blame Rowley, blame Rowley, blame Rowley. And then people like Winston will come and say, well, why are they complaining? Until they blame Kamala for 5 years, so why we can't blame Rowley for 5 years? Hypocrisy. If blaming Kamala was wrong, then blaming Rowley should be wrong too. But if all they want to come and play the tit-for-tat politics, which is what we expect from you guys. And I saw him just now mentioning about he never heard the UNC tell people not to vote. They wouldn't come out and say it, Mr. Bachelor, but we heard reports. You remember you live here part-time and you live abroad part-time, that the persons were being paid not to vote. Persons were being paid to spoil their ballot. And I can tell you in my own constituency, we had a few spoiled ballots where people come and they put the X by all three candidates. Or they just stamp a set of X's all over the ballot. And so I mean, what sense that make? What sense that make? There was not vigilance in terms of ensuring people left their phone. So when you went to the poll clerk, they say, you have a phone on you, and they left it up to you to say yes or no. So if you said yes, they tell you put it in the box. If you say no, well, all right, they ain't going and pat you down to see if you have a phone. So you could have gone in the box. They might care. That's just a work for them. They ain't going to try to enforce that to cause no bacchanal and no rap. So people could have easily gone in and taken pictures of their ballot. That was my experience. The guy asked me, say, you have a phone on you? I said yes. It's not like to say I saw police officers or anybody there who took us, say, well, come and shake. They can't do that. So they just take your word, because remember, they are not permanent employees with the EBC. Yeah? These are people who just get work for the day. Right? The EBC hired them to just perform a job for the day, so they don't really care. You say no, all right, whatever, none of my business. Could go and do your thing. We don't know who they're supporting, because I'm sure you would have had polling officers, who were both PNM and UNC, and other parties who were there. So they ain't going to enforce nothing because they don't know who you're voting for. And if they're supporting UNC and they think you might be a UNC too, go with your phone. Go with your phone. But I just want to say to PNM people, I don't even want to say PNM people anymore. Because if it's one thing you could credit the UNC for with their supporters when they come out, come rain or shine, come hell or high water, it don't matter what the leadership of the party does to them. It doesn't matter what the executives of the party do. It doesn't matter what the leader says or does. They come out all the time. I just saw an article there. 100 and the UNC votes, PNM votes went down by 102,000. UNC's votes went up. And I'm certain it wasn't. So some of those some of that vote increase might have been some disgruntled PNM supporters. And the main is just people who, some of them would have been on the fences, some of them who take bribe to vote. But in large measure, 102 persons who voted for the PNM in 2020 did not come out. And that is why I say when you take a decision and you say my one vote doesn't matter, you are adding to the tally. And that is what you all did. Whole families that chose to go on the beach instead of going out and vote. And when you look, some of you who say, well, my one vote ain't gonna make a difference, this is a PNM stronghold. If you live in Point Fortin, your one vote would have counted. If you lived in La Brea, your one vote was needed. Right? If you're living in Tobago West, where Shamfa Kojo was, your one vote was needed. So when you say my one vote doesn't matter, your one vote plus your wife one vote, and you decide, this is a PNM seat and the PNM can win, and you decide and your whole family decide you're voting, it mattered. But for the sake of a few votes, an election was lost. And again, I say when we look at the margins by which we lost in most of these seats, imagine Foster Cummings did all that work in La Joqueta Talparo, and it mattered not to the people of La Joqueta Talparo. You know what they will come and say? Well, Foster, but the people didn't know we have no library. Of course, we don't want no library. Why? You know why? Because the UNC says PNM people don't read. If you want to hide something from somebody of African descent, put it in a book. They love to say that. And you all just reinforce that for them. Because if Kamala had put a library, or Jolene John was the MP and had put a library, they would have sing her praises. But people don't want that. Any little thing, any little pocket, when the houses were demolished recently, oh yes, the UNC was quick to run to them. We're going to provide a lawyer. But they don't understand when you do things like that, it makes it more difficult for you to be able to enforce the laws as it pertains to squatter regularization and so on. Right? Because you encouraged it. What are you going to do now? But a lot of the promises they will not be able to deliver on, and all you will hear is because the PNM thief the money, and the PNM leave the treasury empty. And we have to brace ourselves to hear that for the next 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days. Because rest assured, they're not going to do like the PNM and call no early election. They're not doing that. In my own view, this election should not have been called until September. Stuart Young should have been afforded the opportunity to show the country what it is he was going to do and what leadership under Stuart Young would look like. I had a conversation with him yesterday morning, and you all, Trinidad and Tobago, you all would have lost out. I could tell you that. Because the plans that Stuart Young had to develop this country and revolutionize this country would have blown your minds. Would have blown your minds. The relationships that he has established with some of these energy companies and the things that he was going to do. Right? You all lost out on that. Whether you will get it back, I don't know, because the PNM has to select an opposition leader. So we'll see how that goes. All right? And then we have leadership election coming up after that. So the ball is in your court. I don't know what else to tell all you. I really don't know. Where we go from here, I don't know. But I can tell you, when it is that even in the PNM constituencies, such as mine, if we can't deliver, please don't blame us. Right? You all had the opportunity to give us the wherewithal to do the work. You didn't. So if your street light ain't fixed, don't blame me if it can't get done and if the councillor can't get it done, because priority is being given to the UNC constituencies. If your road need patching, and I don't put it past them to call an early local government election to try and see if they could capitalize and wrest the corporations from the PNM as well. All right? I wouldn't put it past them at all to do that. In fact, I think persons expect that to happen. So, if that happens and I don't have my councillors, my PNM councillors to work with me to at least get some things done, I mean, well, I'll tell you. You all don't understand how this representation thing works. It's not just the MP. The MP works with the councillors. And if they decide they want to starve PNM control councillors, councils, and corporations for resources, then there's only so much we could do. We could only work with what we have. So if your road don't get fixed and your draining clean and it has you're living on a river bank and the river is undermining the land and your home is at risk and you spoke to me about it and I gave you the commitment that I would do my best to be able to get it done, it's left to the mercy of these people. Roger Alexander, he won his seat. I don't know what position he's going to get, but at the end of the day, he lives in my constituency. So it may very well mean I may have to have a conversation with him to see how we could work together to improve the constituency. All right, because he has a vested interest in this constituency as well. And so hopefully he would make representation. And it's not about, we need to forget the Balize and the Rising Sun when it comes to delivering. As an MP, yes, you're the MP for Tunapuna, and that is where your first priority needs to be. But if you could make representation for the very constituency that you live in, all the better. All right? I just saying that. So we will do what we can. We will do the best. All of the gluten and the UNC supporters and things. And oh, it's licks and all like licks and so on. And okay, and what? And what? You're boasting on thing? Well, UNC time now. But remember, some of you all have family and friends living in PNM constituencies. Just remember that. So when you want to gloat and boast about how all you win, or when you're all happy that PNM constituencies are struggling, just remember you have friends and family living in these same PNM constituencies, and they too will be suffering. So when you're living in your UNC constituency and they're treating all you nice, spare a thought for your sister or your brother or your mother or father who are living in a PNM constituency. And when they complain about the bad roads, don't blame me. Don't blame me. I have no power to do anything. All I can do is write letter and talk to whoever is the minister and make representation. But they have no obligation to assist me in any way. Well, they do. But if they choose not to exercise that obligation, there's nothing I could do about it. and the rest, and my other colleagues, there's nothing we could do about it either. Because as I said, while PNM, when the PNM is in power, and they try to do work in UNC constituencies in the hope that they could somehow convince UNC supporters to maybe support the PNM. The UNC, they don't operate on the same level. And if they do any work in the constituency, it's because. So as I said, and all the gloating, UNC did not convince the population to vote for them. What they did was to exploit issues to convince the population to not vote. Well, a significant portion of the population to not vote at all, without care or consideration for the consequence. And in due course, some of these very people will come to regret their decision. All right? But I'm just saying, they keep telling me, after you win, make sure you come back and touch the ground and walk the constituency. I walk the constituency, I will come back and do that. I will hear your cries. But I cannot, there's only so much I could do. I'm saying, I will be the first MP for this constituency in the last 24 years to be in opposition. Jarrett Narain was in government. Karen Nunes Teixeira was in government. Anil Roberts was in government. Ansel Antoine was in government. Lisa Morris Julian was in government. I am in opposition. Okay? What a time for me to come in here. What a time for me to come in here and to have to come and have to treat with this. So I'm just saying. So let me see. Someone here is saying Sunday he was begging supporters to vote and cuss we after. For you to make a comment like that, you are not a PNM. You are a PNM supporter, you're not a PNM. And I doubt you're even a PNM member. All right? And if you came out and voted for the PNM, then I'm not speaking to you. Was that Sean Sokafield? Yeah. If you voted for the PNM, I'm not speaking to you. I'm speaking to the persons who chose not to vote. And therefore, if you did not come out and vote for the PNM, you are not a supporter. So you understand the difference between the two.
He does not have a history of running this country well.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
And the worst yet now with the team that Kama Prasad has. So that is a sure recipe for disaster. And we know in these times that is very challenging, even worse than when they were in office 2010 to 15, when the world economy was the way it was at. COVID-19 then present its own challenges, and then you have geopolitics, and then you have Trump as a president. Somewhere in their mind, they tell themselves that they will work better with Trump, and Trump will help them and all that. And I think that is delusional. And just ask the citizens of America who voted for Trump, and they're out on the streets every single day, all on podcasts all over, and saying they regret what they did. But as you would have told people, you can't pull back into. So we are where we are. The honeymoon period will soon fade, and then all the promises that the UNC made on the campaign to people will be looking to. And I did some thinking about it, and I'm saying the 18-year-olds, about 45-year-old youth in this country, whether male or female, they never experienced NAR and the IMF. So they don't have a concept of what that means really in a real sense. And we know by the way things are going to go, Kama Prasad said Sunday will go to the IMF. There was some time or whether they will have to go to the IMF because at the end of the day, to keep the record expenditure, that is salaries for public officers, and all that to be will be very challenging for them, especially in a space that revenues are not coming in as it should. Right? Given Roger the refinery, where he's in, it's not like they give them the refinery today. They hire people today and they start to pump crude oil today, and that will then fit today. That refinery has been done, so it has to be fixed, it has to be brought up to modern standards. That is going to cost a substantial amount of money, Where will they get it from? The last time they weren't able with patriotic, whatever the name, they wasn't able to get that money. They had to produce instead some false document that they haven't been denied or denounced, saying that they get so much $100 million or some lending agency or that. Until all this to say, let them enjoy it, let them laugh, let them think, and we will be going through it as normal. We will feel depressed, we will feel dejected. All that is a part of human emotion. I see nothing wrong with it. Let them laugh, let them celebrate and all that. But trust me, next 3 months, it's saying because celebrating and talking, already talking. They will have to turn wrong. They will have a choice. Whether they call it only name or sport name, they won't have a choice. They want their money. And you see that 10% that Kamala didn't offer, it's not Kamala offer that, you know. It's Felicia Thomas said we go get 10%. And then Roger come and said starting point to the negotiation will be 10%. So Kamala then commit about 10% of public officers, but public officers have been calling and talking to me, they say they want the 10%. So that is our next piece of background. But not only that, what period is the 10% for? Felicia Thomas never tell nobody that. They're just saying 10%. Because I will tell you, if the 10% is from 2014 to 2023, we ain't get nothing. Because what you have got for 2014, 16, 17, 19 or 4%, and 5% for 2020, 21, 22, 23, like 9%. So if now we get 10% for all them years, all they was fighting and agitating and talking all that for 1%. So it is interesting time and again I said, let them be happy, they go cost me, they go insult me. It's nothing new. It's nothing new. And we will take it because that is how they are. And we will be dejected and they will tell you kind of thing and then insult me. Okay, it's human emotions. We was going hard at it. Very hard and convinced that the PNM would have won. Based on the things to do. It didn't happen. We accept defeat. But you know what we would do? The right thinking to those who voted for the PNM, we would sit back with the popcorn and we, whatever juice you drink, whatever, and we're going to watch the drama and the comedy unfold because it will unfold. And it's not because we're that in this country. It's because people made a wrong decision whether to vote to the UNC or whether not to vote to the PNM or whether they didn't vote at all. And that is a fact. All leaders are afraid to little be in the euphoria and feel that something good is going. Nothing good is going to happen. All is going to happen, we're going to end up in a lot of problems where we are paying expenditure is concerned and all the monetary gifts that they have offered people that would have convinced people to go to the UNC. So that is what it is, and that is that reality. And PNM has been here several times, 53, 2912. So this is not something new. And I personally think the PNM is more. When I say dangerous, not in sense of doing anybody anything, but more when it comes to a commitment rebellion when they are in opposition, because when they come back, and this time when PNM come back, if they have no getting them out like that, because they would have learned, because 3 times now, learned from mistakes. And I'm very confident the organization and the People's National Movement will come back stronger and do better. And people will be balling just now over the PNM. At least the PNM, they do this thing, it's the PNM. You will hear them saying it, Dominic. You will hear them saying it. Roaring, gnashing, and groaning at teeth will come in on the last laugh. It's who laugh their best. So let them laugh now, let them have the thing. Leave it to again, congratulations, and take heart. You could only do what you can do. You can't do what you cannot do. And for those who went and didn't vote, and all that and whatever, today, tomorrow, you'll sit down just now and ask yourself, I shoulda, I coulda, and I woulda. But it is what you have. So that make you have a blessed one. Don't be distracted by the Wilson battery. They will throw talk at me now. They will throw talk because we said give them talk. I take him talk me business because he said get talk. So we are business, they afraid that. I go get talk to the tongue, I go tongue them. But the end of the day, reality will step in. The UNC cannot fulfill the promises that they would have. Not with a bunch of people they have there at all. No. It was back in the days, Nissan, Paris, and this one. But you see that pamphlet and can't deliver to this country. That is real now. That's not comedy sense we didn't have, right? But I wish them well. And then the Marco Rubio, the secretary, they don't even understand diplomacy. Wrote a letter, you know, saying congratulations, a strong leader. Oh, God, well, that's all over. Yes, you know what? They don't understand diplomacy. Really? That's what they're holding on to. With our president, like Trump, who consider we minorities. I wish all is okay. Have a blessed one, Dominic, and thank you for the opportunity as usual.
Thank you, Jen. Morning, Zena.
Good morning, Dominic.
How are you?
I am good. I send hearty congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Well, you know, I have to say, you know how I must be feeling right now. You could just imagine, so I will know how you are feeling. Listen, all I want to say is that the war has been won, but the battle has just begun. So, congratulations to you. Stay strong and holy faith we will rebuild. But here what I want to tell you. This evening is General Council. All year, I beg in my party to think wisely, move correctly. Don't create no disharmony and this evening, because it will make it worse for the party and give people or them others out there who like the bacchanal and the couture more things to laugh at. We have a strong leader in Stuart Young, and you just said what the vision he had for this country. I am my way out, you know, or like me on our way. We need young people to take step forward like you all and carry the party forward. So you see any kind of stupid power play, PNM people, all you think serious. I don't want any further disturbance in this party. That's all I have to say, you know. Let us be serious. Let us go forward with what we have. And don't do any stupidness to Dr. Rowley this evening. That's all I beg, you know. Let us stay strong and don't further fracture the party. Thank you. And you have a blessed day. And say all the prayers before they go to vote. When it's time to vote, in whoever to lead on you.
Mm-hmm.
And stay strong, Dominic.
Thank you.
You'll talk. I'll talk to you off the air, but I know you're busy.
Yes.
Right? Okay, all right.
Thank you. That's all right. Hold one sec, Eric. Let me just respond to something here. And again, Winston eased us up with the dishonesty. You know? When Dr. Rowley made that statement about not supporting the People's Partnership, I've spoken to this issue before, and you know the context in which that was said. It was in the face of the Administration of Justice, bill, AJIPA, in which Section 34 was contained in order to get the support, because as you know, that required the support of the opposition, because it needed a special majority because it impacted on constitutional rights. And Dr. Rowley and the PNM gave their support to the People's Partnership on the basis that the bill would not be proclaimed unless and until all of the necessary infrastructure was in place to roll out the bill, which included they needed to hire masters of the court, they needed to construct judicial centers around the country, and there were a lot of other things that had to be put in place before the bill would be proclaimed. So they gave their support for the passage of the bill as required because of the impact it had on the Constitution. They gave them the special majority to pass the bill, and the bill having been passed, then the People's Partnership, controlled by the UNC, gave us Section 34. They pulled out that section from the Administration of Justice bill and proclaimed it. And then when they were discovered and what the intent of that clause was and the impact that it would have had, rather than own up to their dishonesty, they come and say, well, the PNM shouldn't talk because it's the whole parliament passed the bill. So what, they didn't know about that, the effect that that clause would have had? and try to pass it off on the PNM to say, well, the PNM contributors, it's the whole parliament passed the bill. The whole parliament passed the bill. The PNM gave their support on the basis that no clause in the bill would be proclaimed until the necessary infrastructure was in place. And what did they go and do? They pull out Section 34 in the dead of the night and proclaim it so that two of their financiers could get off. And Dr. Rowley said in the face of that betrayal, where the UNC promised they would not proclaim the bill, and then went and pull out Section 34 and then have the audacity and the temerity to come and say, well, the PNM supported the bill, that Dr. Rowley said we will not support anything that they do, because if they could be so deceitful and duplicitous as to do that, and then come and try to make it look as if we, the opposition, that we were complicit in the dishonesty and the corruption, then we're not supporting any bill going forward. That is the context in which Dr. Rowley is. So stop lying to the people now. All you win and you're still coming here to promote propaganda and untruths? Come on. And then this next one talking about the United States called Kamala. You know, you UNC supporters, you'll have some of the biggest hypocrites that have out there. The same Marco Rubio that you're bigging up. Just the other day, when it says that he praised Stuart Young after they had the meeting in Jamaica, and the same Marco Rubio put out a statement and so on. You same UNC supporters was talking about, so what, Marco Rubio is PNM? And when the US Embassy in Trinidad here put out the statement, you're always saying that the US Embassy is a PNM party group. Why it is that they promoting Stuart Young and the PNM. You're always saying that. But today you're laughing up on the same Marco Rubio who put out a statement, oh, he called Kamala a friend. That is just basic normal diplomacy. And the only reason why his eyes are cast on Trinidad is because of the work that he was doing with Stuart Young. So of course now the whole trajectory changes, because insofar as the last week or so when they put out that statement where he spoke about Stuart Young's strong leadership when it comes to Trinidad and Tobago's energy situation. Where were you? The same Marco Rubio that you beat, oh, he called Kamala a friend. Last week, he big up Stuart Young's leadership. Where were you? The same Marco Rubio, not a different one. Where were you to come and say, hey, Marco Rubio, he promoted and he big up Stuart Young for his leadership. Where were you to talk about that then? So he called Kamala a friend, and that is a big achievement. But when he spoke about Stuart Young's leadership with respect to the energy sector, he didn't see it fit to come and talk about that. That was no big accolade. And you all are such hypocrites, boy. Disgusting. Give me a break. I don't want to be any shadow minister of anything, sir. Right? As I said, I'm not about that. I'm not going there for me. It's not about me. It's about the constituents of Malabar Mausika. I'm not going there for no self-aggrandizement and no big show and all. I'm not doing that. Because at the end of the day, that's not helping the people of my constituency. Because I met a guy on Sunday evening. He sent me a message. Because we handed out cards, and on the card they had the number, and he called and stuff. Not called, he sent a message talking and that he wanted to meet me because he missed when I walked in his area. And I met to the guy, and he told me about how he would have lost his job a couple of years ago. He was working as an estate constable, and he lost his job. And since then, you know, it's been a struggle. Right now, he's working a little taxi, but he can't get the vehicle inspected because it has some issues that he has to address, and he doesn't have the money to fix it. Right, and it's impacting. He got an eviction notice and things like that, and so he's looking for help. And we were able to provide him with some help. I'm not going to go into the details, but you have people like that in the constituency. You feel he care for me to go in the parliament and grandstand and all of that? That's not helping him. That's not putting food on his table. It's not paying his rent, and it's not paying his bills. It's not about that. So all this who going to be shadow minister and all this kind of foolishness that you all give prominence to, that don't matter to me. I don't want to be no shadow minister of anything. I'm not going inside it to grandstand. At the end of the day, we have to work with the new government. And if they're not doing their work, and if they decide to punish my constituency, make no mistake, I will let my constituency and the population know that that is what they're doing. Because the resources does not belong to them. It belongs to the entire country. And the same thing that PNM people used to be condemning the PNM government for, which is trying to spread the resources across the 41 constituencies, contrary to the lies that was being told by the opposition. But when people like Rai Ragbir on his way out, right, admitted in the public all the work that Marvin Gonzalez would have done in his constituency to help his constituents, that wasn't done between 2010 to 2015, and the relief that Marvin would have brought to his constituency, a UNC constituency. And Rai Ragber made that statement when they were turning the sod for, again, another facility in his constituency to assist with the delivery of water for the constituents of that constituency. So it is, when UNC claiming, oh, they did not know work, that is lie. So I'm not going there for that purpose. It's not about that. Because there are real concerns and real issues that people have in the constituency across all 41 constituencies, and the 41 of us who sit in the parliament, that should be our priority, to assist them, right? It's not about us. So all this thing about who going to be shadow, I'm not shadowing nobody, because no, that is not what the constituency, 7,800 and so people who voted for me, they didn't give me their vote to go there to do that. So I am just making that known, right? Eric, go ahead.
Good morning, sir. Good morning to the listeners and the callers. Another segment of Access to One Things. Let me take this opportunity to send congratulations to Hans Levines in the Martin West, Simon Dino Brigade, the Martin Central, Tom Enbert in the Martin Northeast, Prime Minister Stuart Young in Port Spain North and Trans West, Keith Scotland in Port Spain South, Cathy Daly in St. Anne's East, Kareem Marcel in Lapantil West, Christian Butchwood in Lapantil East Mova, Marvin Gonzalez in Aruca Lupino, Camille Robinson Regis in Trinity Maloney, Penny in Arima, Brian in San Fernando East, and you, Dominic, for holding the fort and for fighting in this election. Unfortunately, we were not successful because of a certain mantra that was being played out in the public space over the last 6 weeks. Right? But like I said, the people in this country took FAFO, right? Right? For people who don't know what FAFO means, they know what it means, right? But nevertheless, it is what it is. So I think it's only fair now that as a party that would have gone down this road, not once, not twice, but 4 times, 1986, 1995, 2010, 2021, and now this time. Right? So we as a people in this country, we have to sit down and understand what governance means. Governance is not a popularity show. Governance is not about the MPs alone. Governance is the people who elect 41 candidates to govern the country, not for UNC or not for PNF, for all constituency, all 1.5 million of us. Right? So all this thing about is we time now, and it's this and all kind of nastiness that's going on social media. Elections done is about getting the book and the job out to the public space. Right? All the time they question the PNM and say, oh, the PNM, no, the reason why PNM would have lost the election is one, it actually is why they lost this election. One, poor public relations. 2, poor social media aspect. And 3, the discontent or disconnect on the lower level of the people. Right? Because I'm not buying this ground talk foolishness in with me. Because ground talk and ground troopers and ground staff and these things, no. It's not a ground, that doesn't mean ground. Because it was ground, the same ground would have fight for Foster Cummins, the same ground would have fight for Terence Yancing, and the same ground would have fight for Esmond Ford, who are born to the Punian. Right? So miss me with that ground talk foolishness. The reason why people did not come out and vote, because one or two things. They were paid to stay home, or they were suppressed, because I don't understand that certain people in the constituency, ID card was taken from them on that day, so they couldn't, but still, they could have gone out and voted and let the people know that X, Y, and Z is the case, and X, Y, and Z with my ID card that was stolen from me, and as a result, I have my ID card, they will still be able to vote by affirmation. Right? But with that being said and done, now is the time for us now to regroup as a people, to come together, to understand where we at, where we went wrong, and how we're going to fix this going forward. Right? Because it is going to be difficult to see all these projects that was taking place at incomplete to just lay on the wayside going forward. Because why people had a grievance with Dr. Rowley, unleashes Dr. on the people, Dr. Rowley, this, and he said community life and thing. People who FAFO, I have nothing to say about that. For those who would have gone out and did their civic duty, and like what Jenny said, we will sit down and we will watch from the background with our popcorn and soft drink, or whatever drink, and see the whole community fest unfold. We will wait. We will be saying, no, we will be like, no, I said it, I was not going to come here and be fighting the cause because the opposition, but I decided I will sit down and we will sit down and we will watch everything that unfolds, and to the liking or the disliking of the people, we will do what we have to do. We can't give nothing because we're in opposition. You understand? My member of parliament, Marvin Gonzalez, in opposition. So we can't, even if I go to him to get anything done for people who I know, he will do what he could do in public to get in parliament, and it's up to the government to assist the people on that. Because I just interact with some people and they might come to me and say, well, hey, you know, so X, Y, and Z situation. I say, all right, I will try. I will make a little call to the MP and see what best we could thing. And the most we could do is bring the parliament and see if they could assist in any way possible. So people, this is what it gets when you decide to be personality problems, or you have a vendetta against Dr. Rowley and the party. It is going to cause a ripple effect as of what we're experiencing now. Right? So Shampa Kojo, that seat surprised me, knowing that it's only 100 votes that she lost by in Tobago West. 100 votes. She lose by it. So that alone goes to show, and she said it. She said PNM people just vote out PNM people, and it's a fact. So with this being said and done, I know today they have a meeting today, and as what Zida said, let good sense prevail. Do not go down there with all your feelings and all your personality problems and things and try to cause any more harm than good in the party. Because by doing that, all you're going to create more problem in the party. Dr. Rowley he said it on Monday night, he's going to retire as the political leader and we will have to elect an opposition leader, and I think the right person to be there at present is Stuart Young, and the opposition chief whip is my Camille Robertson Regis. I see two people I see will be able to really steer the opposition in our way forward. And I know you, Dominic, and Carmen, and Category, and Marvin, and them will have them on their toes. But I see chief whip is Camille, and the opposition leader is Stuart Young. People on social media are saying they want Penny. Penny will be the opposition as well. So all of them is going to go there and fight for the common cause of the interest of not just the PNM constituency they would have won, but for the interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. They let the country know what is taking place going forward. And you know, at the end of the day, I give them about probably a year and a half. But within the 6 months going forward, we will see how the real drama unfolds. So, Felicia Thomas, I will give them a 10%, and I want it ASAP. Anyway, Dominic, I love Tony and I listening, and people, let's stay strong, let's band together, and let us go and rebuild from where we fell short. We all see already, we have been at this juncture, and we will always see Balize never dies. The Balize flower will always bloom again. Yeah? So let us continue the battle and the fight for the common cause of the interests of the people of this country. Dominic, with that being said and done, I don't know if I'm listening.
Thank you, sir. All right, so I'm just looking at a little bit of statistics here, right? So I saw as of yesterday, and take note of these figures, as of yesterday, the murder counts to that 127. For the same period last year, we were at, let me see, we were at 178 murders as of the 30th of April last year. We were at 178 murders. Year to date, we are at 127 murders. Okay, so we are 51 less murders today than we will see in place last year. So remember, under them, they say crime is only under the PNM. So we will check. Prasad Bisasa is going to be sworn in today. So we will see. So all who want to get gun FUL license, or you're suffering, or you have no money, you're struggling. So make sure you save your money so you can go and buy a gun, right? Okay? And just try and not be trigger happy. So the police officers, crime is going to go down because police officers are going to be more focused on doing background checks to make sure persons qualify for FULs rather than out on the beat. In fact, on Monday night, I was talking to a colleague of mine who was telling me of his ordeal with respect to his application for a gun license since 2014. He didn't get it yet. He said only a few months ago, the officer came back to follow up, to do the follow-up interview. And he was surprised, at the way the interview went, because the officer asking him about two of his ex-girlfriends and his current, his current better half. They're not married, but they live together. They have a child. And so, and he's asking him all of these details. Does this one know about that one? And then they had to talk to all three women. And then he's asking, the one who he lives with was telling him how the officer asked him about this. So asked her about the other two and what's the relationship and what they have. Or it was just, I'm saying, what does that have to do with a firearm user's license? Right? So all who licking the chops and telling themselves, Kamala say they're going to make it easier to get an FUL for law-abiding citizens. Just remember, there's a process. So unless they are going to remove that aspect of the process where the police do thorough checks to make sure this is somebody who's qualified mentally and otherwise to be able to own a firearm, and then rest assured, it's not going to be much easier for you to get a firearm. Okay? It's not going to be, and especially if you're going to have an influx of tens of thousands of applications because the government says it's easier now and everybody wants to own a gun. Okay? If you are successful, just remember you have to be mindful of, when you have it, you have to carry it with you, or if you leave it home, don't give it to your child or your son wants to learn how to shoot too and all of them kind of thing, and you tell your son, well, the gun upstairs and the code to the safest so and so, and we're going out. So if anybody come, you know how to handle yourself, because we try and avoid that now. You and your neighbor having a difference, the neighbor having a little party, he had too much to drink, and 1 o'clock in the morning he's still playing the music loud. You have a gun and he have a gun. Try not to go outside with your gun, please. And if you see he has his gun, should you have to go outside to ask him to turn down the music because you have to get up just now to go to work and the kids have to go to school and his whole day playing this music and the whole night and like he has no discretion. Please, if you see he has his gun brandishing, go back in your house. All right, because if he's under the influence and then he waving the gun to tell you, hey, and it happens to go off and he put 2 cap in your backside and you dead, your family has to suffer and he make in jail and we don't need that. All right, so try and avoid conflict. You don't go out with your gun and try and just see. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Dominic, sir. Again, especially congratulations, sir. Right. Again, I would be, I've seen all the comments and stuff from the usual persons who, are UNC inclined, right? But again, at the end of the day, we all have to remember that regardless of what, you all are now in the position that you all said that the PNM was screwing apart. So instead of, just spewing all this nonsense, you all need to now focus on ensuring that your leaders, first of all, the proper leaders are put where they need to be and not any miscreants, and that they are able now to do a better job because that is the platform on which you campaign. So all of this extra nonsense, and I see it all over my time, all these different things, and I'm like, listen, focus on the issues at hand because the same talk of the dragon, the this one, the that one, everybody now have to face these people. You are now the face of Trinidad and Tobago. So that's where the focus needs to be. And in the way of the PNM, again, I would say I continue to support the PNM because again, it is indeed a strong party. Though it's easy to cast aspersions and say, this and that, the other, whatever. Yes, mistakes were made, and again, you spoke about them before, they were acknowledged, right? Certain people made some decisions that may not have been popular, right? And that kind of thing. But however, moving forward, we need to figure out what we're going forward with, right? Because we do, again, I would tend to think that maybe, just maybe, the UNC would now want to try to consolidate local. So I think we need to focus now on in the way of local government so that they don't create corporations. So that is what they would look to do because I know it's about 3 new corporations they would have taken over in terms of MP, right? So, we had to look at strategy and going forward. So now, even though the population would have spoken, we heard you guys, we hear you, we understand. But again, now we have to focus on what is important in terms of going forward and making sure and ensuring that these new leaders are held accountable and all the promises and pie in the skies, which still are making no sense up to today. Let's just see what they are doing. But again, one thing I just want to say is that I don't want Madala to be floated. Please do not float Madala and please do not go to the IMF for anything. Because you all said that you all could do all bring all the gifts and all the prizes forward without having to go to the IMF. So let's stick to it, right? Let's stick to all the promises. I want to see it now because if it is, people feel to realize that if it is that come like PNM people did not vote for you all, however, they withdrew their vote, which means they allowed you all to be nominated. You understand? And that's the only reason why you all were elected. So I do not look at it as UNC win. No. UNC did not win. Because PNM people did not go out, that's the only reason why they got the majority. However, we hear you loud and clear, and we just want now going forward to what they say that they was going to do, or else it will be a one-term again. Because if you all learned from the last time, we don't take it lying now. You understand? So if it is a promising something, don't go up there and push us to that corruption or to that nonsense. Because then if you will be voted out, know that's gonna be happening. Right? So that is the best advice. But again, people do not be despondent, do not fall, into any kind of baseless or be baited into any kind of hate or anything like that. Just keep your eye on the prize. We're going forward. Right? Have a blessed day, guys. And have a blessed day, Dominic.
You too. Right. So let me just correct something that I see Chris saying here is that the UNC increased their voting margin. the UNC had to form a coalition. On their own, the UNC could not beat the PNM. All right, so I just putting that out there, first of all. And as I made the point before, Chris, even though the UNC may have gotten additional votes, because, some people were disgruntled for whatever reason, and they came and they gave their support, who gave their support to the UNC because they get a little dust. The seats that the PNM lost, in particular the marginal seats, so when you look at the margin by which they lost, compared to the votes that they would have gotten in 2020, where in my constituency, as I said, the difference of the 4,000, they didn't go and vote for the UNC, they chose not to vote. So they had no confidence in the UNC. They chose to register and no vote for the PNM. But just remember, these people are always there. These people are always dormant. And when it is that they feel that the PNM has been punished enough and they have made their point, that the next time an election comes around, they are there. And as I made the point to you, the PNM did not, the UNC probably got about maybe 350 something thousand votes. 300 in 2010 when they had the partnership, they got over 450,000 votes. They were not able to replicate that this time. In 2010, they were able to get a lot of PNM supporters. In my own constituency here in my walkabout, people told me that PNM people say in 2010 I make the mistake. The worst mistake I make was to vote for Anil Roberts. But that is happening again. The UNC was not able to convince these people to come across to them. What they did successfully, and it is one of the things that the PNM needs to focus on, and had they listened to me, we would have been able to achieve it, since I was telling them that in 2018, is that our public relations, our social media presence was poor. That what I was doing on radio in terms of debunking what the UNC was saying and all of the lies that they were telling, had we done that on a more mass scale across the country, right, they would not have been able to fool PNM people. So, for instance, one of the things that they fooled a lot of senior citizens with, and I can tell you, I know it's been probably in my constituency too. You see that bill, that clause that spoke about if you have $25,000 in savings, that you that could impact on your ability to qualify for a senior citizens grant. That clause would have applied had the law been passed. That clause would have applied only to new applicants for pension, not existing senior citizens grant recipients. But the UNC was able to sell it to the senior citizens that if the PNM comes back into government, that your pension, you who are receiving your senior citizens grant, that you could lose it if you have $25,000 or more in savings. And no matter how you try to convince people of that, and I gave you all the example of the man, the elderly guy that I met, who told me that he was PNM all his life. But then he said, well, if PNM want to come and take away my pension, Kamla, that's all PNM taken away, and Kamla giving. I said, so what is Kamla giving? Kamla giving everything. She giving everything. And if you see how the man started to get animated and so on, I said, sir, that is not true. The PNM was not going to touch your pension. That clause was only going to apply to new applicants, not to exist. No matter how I try to explain that to this man, he didn't want to hear that. When I walked in Crescent Gardens, I encountered same thing, a senior citizen, same concern. He said to me, listen, my only concern is this thing with this pension. He said, don't apply to me because I work in the private sector and I get my private sector pension. He said, but I have friends and family who are senior citizens who are benefiting from this grant, and now I am concerned that they're going to lose their pension. I said, sir, that is not the case. One, the bill was withdrawn, and two, that clause, had it been implemented, would have only applied to new applicants. But the man, we had a conversation, and then he ended about other things, and he still bring it back in the end about my only concern is that my friends and so on who get in, that they could lose their pension. And the UNC was successfully able to market that and convince senior citizens, who are some of the persons who are most inclined to go out and vote, right? If it's one thing, the elderly, they go out and vote. But a lot of them were concerned about their pension, and they were not convinced after that whole debacle that they would not lose their pension. And so a lot of them cannot stomach the idea of voting for the UNC. They loathe, they detest the UNC. But they said, you know what? I can't go on, I cannot vote for the UNC, but afraid if I vote for the PNM2 that I could lose my pension. And again, we did not successfully treat with that. This whole issue of the $2.6 billion missing and that dotish talk. There is no $2.6 billion missing, right? And since the UNC supporters insist, well, now your party is in power, okay? So they have access to all the information. And when it is that you see that you ain't hearing nothing about that, it shouldn't take long. Because they could do that next week and come and present to you all the evidence and say, look, they thieved $2.6 billion. So when you don't hear it and they know the facts that no $2.6 billion was missing, and when they go in there and they know the explanation given is correct, because the Auditor General has been extremely silent in since September last year. She has been silent. She was supposed to have a meeting with the central bank to interrogate Mr. Imbert's claim that the issue of the $2.6 billion and the understatement took place at the central bank. That was since September last year, 8 months. If it is that, and I'm certain that meeting would have been had, and if it is that Mr. Imbert had lied, rest assured she would somehow found some way to pass that information on to the UNC, and they would have been talking about that. Did the UNC, you hear them talking about this $2.6 billion in any degree of significance at the campaign? They made any mention about that? If they mentioned it, it was just something in passing. $2.6 billion unaccounted for. But they didn't go into any great detail to say, well, or to call on the minister to say whether or not the meeting took place between the Auditor General and the central bank. So when it is, you see, they go in there and no money was missing. I hope you hypocrites who are pushing that lie, right? That you all will, well, we'll have a platform that you're on. But we know all you will go silent on that. You all wouldn't talk about it. Call on Kamala Prasad to find out, to tell all of the truth. Call on her to tell all the truth. I want you to come to tell all the truth that no money was missing. You hear better. Well, they ain't gonna say nothing. There's one here called Victor Doom talking about he from Cedrus, and for the last 9 years, the struggles he had for water. You shouldn't have had any struggles. Between 2010 to 2015, didn't the UNC say what 75% or more of the population was receiving a 24-hour supply of water? Didn't they say that? But all coming now to talk about all the struggles that you had for water. Marvin Gonzalez dig more wells. Marvin Gonzalez put in place more booster stations than perhaps any Minister of Public Utilities in the last how many years. But that's the nonsense, so they'll come anyway. But we will see. But that is one of the things that we did not address properly. I think that what should have happened is that once that meeting took place between the central bank and the Auditor General, that the minister should have come out and spoken to that and tell the population what the outcome was, right? Or the Auditor General should have made a statement, or central bank or somebody should have made a statement on that. They didn't, and they allowed it to remain in abeyance and allow the population to continue to talk about that. The issue of the increase in the salaries for public, for the members of parliament and other senior public officials. Again, that issue, that was one of the, I can tell you, we lost a lot of votes because of that. Again, because the UNC was able to successfully market and talk about Rowley get 47% pay increase when they know that that was not true. That it was not 47%, but 28%. And I was talking to a guy last night and he bring up that same 47% talk again. Because I told you all that what was the duty allowance of $9,000 that Dr. Rowley was receiving, that the Prime Minister, whoever was the Prime Minister, was receiving separate and apart from the base salary of $59,000. That duty allowance was now incorporated into the base salary. So it's not a new $9,000. So it could only be 47% if he got a new additional $9,000. He didn't get an additional. That is something he was receiving before that was incorporated into his base salary. So instead of it being called a duty allowance, they now add it to what the base salary was. So when you add the real difference, so the 59 that he was receiving before, plus the same 9,000 he was receiving before, right, which will take it out 68, the difference is from 68 to the 87. So that wasn't no 47%. But the UNC successfully marketed that and got public servants angry enough to say, well, you tell we country have money and where they tighten we belt and you could only give me 4%, and then you come and you take 47%. But the leader of the opposition got a 76% pay raise from $29,000 a month to $52,000. Last I checked, 76 is more than 47. Unless you're a UNC supporter, in which case you need to more than 47. If you're in UNC, 47 is more than 76. Now, if I was the social media officer for the PNM, I would have spoken about it. Right? That would have been our focus. I would have highlighted that on social media to give the comparison. Okay? So when the leader of the opposition, when they come and talk about Rowley get 47% and he get back pay, Kamala get big back pay too. What she do with it? What she did with it? And she keep it? Did she give it to charity? Of course not. But they see they were able to capitalize because they realized, hey, we will benefit. The PNM will take the licks, but we will still benefit. We will get our back pay and we will get our pay raise and all of that. They got all of that. You feel the vex now that they're going to become ministers that they get in a higher salary than what it was before? Of course, they're not upset. They're very happy. But the PNM paid the price. And we benefited. Because they know that the PNM's public relations was poor. Piss poor. All the lies that they were telling. When Kamala lied and said, oh, the government was going to implement an inheritance tax. Lies. Oh, for the last how much years, the government increased utility rates. Well, remember, she promised you all they're going to reduce the price of gas at the pump. Right? Wicked. But increase the price of gas 5 times. Well, let's see. So to reduce, the only thing they could do to reduce the price at the pump is to increase the subsidy, which means the government is going to pay more. So when you go to the gas station, for every liter that you put in your tank, you will pay less, and the government now has to find the money to pay the difference. Because based on what a liter actually costs, from when it reaches to Trinidad and when it goes on the trucks and whatever, all the monies that are involved in the purchase of the fuel and transporting it to the gas stations and so on, there is a cost per liter. But what you pay and what the government pays, the difference is the subsidy. So the only way she could reduce the price at the pump is to increase the subsidies, which the economists will tell her doesn't make sense, right? It is not good, which the business sector will tell her is not good. All of them will tell her that. Who will she listen to? Because if she has a responsible minister of finance, he too will tell her that not making sense. Because Hawaii, the $11.625 million man, told us in 2013, he told us in 2014, if you want a balanced budget, you need to remove the subsidies and you need to implement property tax. So any finance minister who's going to come in, given the country's precarious financial circumstance, and he will learn. And I really, and it is reflecting on it now, it's humorous, it's hilarious. That not so long ago, Mr. Imbert in an interview, he was talking, and he said there was a little crosstalk between himself and an opposition MP not so long ago. And they were talking about the election and so on. And he said, well, Mr. Imbert said to him, well, if we lose, you could be Minister of Finance. And he said, the person said, me, I don't want to work. I don't want to work at all. So they know the challenges that Imbert was facing. Having to find money every month to ensure that salaries are paid and pensions are paid and all of the other grants and so on are paid. Yeah? So for an opposition MP to say, I don't want to work by, tells you a lot. All right? So we will see how that goes. So they promised they will reduce the price at the pump. So let's see if they're going to do that. They're not going to do it. And they're going to tell you know why we can't do it? Because the Treasury empty and Rowley thief out the money and the PNM thief out the money. So we can. And that's all we will be hearing for the next 5 years. And people like Chris and Winston Batchelor and all of that, they will happily accept that. No, well, you see, if the PNM didn't read the Treasury, the UNC would have been able to do this, and the UNC would have been able to do that. And they find a convenient scapegoat not to deliver promises, to tell all here, the PNM thief out the money, and they will accept that. When they know the truth, they know the facts. What money thief out? We're struggling, we don't even have the revenue. We were depending on Dragon. But we know there will be no talk of any discussion between the UNC and Nicolas Maduro. So Dragon is dead. Now it's dead. It was on life support before. Now it's dead. Okay? Because there's nobody in this administration who could go and who Mr. Maduro willing to talk to. After all the things that the leader of that party said about him and his administration, yeah. So we will see how that goes. But just like with Donald Trump and all who opposed to him in the US or who are now coming and kowtowing to kiss the ring, I see in Trinidad something similar happening. The Mahasabha saying they're willing to work with Prasad Bisesa and her administration, who come in and they're willing to work with. Okay, we'll see how that goes. But you see, when you make a lot of big promises, and one of the things, what is interesting, they always tell us as candidates, whether you're in the PNM, UNC, or whichever party, when you go out and you're campaigning, do not make any promises to the people. That is one of the first things they tell you as a candidate, new or otherwise. Do not make any promises, because when you make promises to people, they will hold you to it. And when you don't deliver, they will make sure everybody know that you are not a person of your word. They tell you that. But apparently the UNC didn't understand that at the senior level. So they made all kind of promises. And you can make all kind of promises when you're on the campaign trail to win the election. But being able to deliver on those promises is something else. I note they didn't say this time that they're going to implement fixed dates for elections. I note this time they didn't promise that they're going to implement term limits for prime minister. Apparently, they say, that we ain't going on that road again. That will benefit us. It was important in 2010 to fool the people, but it's no longer important. So we will see where things go. We look forward today to see who the Attorney General will be, and then on Friday we will see who the new cabinet will be. Get your popcorn and your large Coca-Cola ready. All right, so we will see what happens there as we go forward. But on the good side for me, at least now, I can still travel as I like, because I don't have ministerial responsibility. So I could still hop up on some of the trips that I had planned that I thought I'd have to give up. I could still take those trips. And one is, I need one. One is long overdue. So I just hope, the only thing I ask in Kamla, cool off on convenient parliament until after the 15th now. 15th of May. You can do it like anytime after the 15th of May, I'm good. Okay? Because I have something I need to do between the 8th. I need to make a trip between the 8th and the 15th of May. So if you could give me that blind, all right, you can reconvene parliament like maybe the 20-something of May. Okay? Do me that favor. If anybody here, Kamala has your ears, if you have Kamala's ear, ask her to do that for me now. All right? So, yes. Then I see people saying, yes, the same thing to our social media needed work. A lot of work. We were focused on the wrong things. And going forward, well, hopefully we could fix that. UNC, if anything, the UNC gave us a template as to how you should really run a social media campaign when you're in opposition. The only thing is that we will not be promoting a social media campaign of lies and misinformation that could easily be disproved. Okay? Integrity is important, not to the UNC, because their supporters love to feed on a diet of lies and misinformation, and then they come on platforms like this and lie, share the same lies and misinformation. And no matter how hard you try to correct them, they will still continue to promote the lies and misinformation. But I certainly will not be participating in any social media campaign of misinformation and lies. Okay? So we will see how that goes, how this coalition of interests work. So, and hopefully Prasad Bisesa will have better judgment this time around in her choice of cabinet, which for all intents and purposes appears that is going to be just as large as the last one that she managed, or even larger. And that's one of the things, the danger she needs to concern herself with. The larger the cabinet you have to manage is the more difficult it is to do. If you have a small cabinet, you can manage a small team. But when you have a big team, there's more people, the greater the likelihood that one or two of them might then find themselves involved in bubble and wrongdoing. And to all of the people who are not going to win because the UNC wins, what can I sympathize with you. To the folks who are going to lose their jobs, I sympathize with you. All right? You did not win, and the supporters of that party don't care. They don't care that you have children to send to school. They don't care that you have a mortgage to pay. And they'll come and tell you, oh, the PNM, no, the PNM didn't. In fact, one of the complaints of PNM supporters is that the PNM retained too many UNC people in positions while they were in office. That's another one of the things that we got licks for, right? Another one of the things. So, if I had to identify why I was making the point to the UNC supporters. You all won the election by virtue of the fact that you got the majority of seats, not because you were able to convince a majority of the population to vote. In fact, I'm seeing the headlines on one of the newspapers today, low voter turnout, right? Low voter turnout. So you all didn't convince the people to come out and support you and vote for you. What you managed to do was to capitalize on the PNM's poor PR, the government's poor PR, to convince sufficient PNM people to stay away from the polls. Because for the want of maybe 600 votes in San Fernando West or so, we would have gotten that seat. For the want of 100 votes by so, and maybe 2,000 votes by so, which we have. Because in La Joqueta Talparo, I'm absolutely certain the PNM have enough supporters there who could have given Foster Cummins the win. Certain of that. They just didn't vote. In San Fernando West, I am certain the PNM had sufficient voters who could have, had they come out, would have given Faris the win. They didn't. So I'm saying to the UNC supporters, you all did. You all didn't. You win, but you didn't win. You win, but you didn't win because the PNM supporters who have the capacity and the wherewithal, if they come out in their numbers to bring the PNM back into office the next time opportunity that presents itself, they are still there. They are still there. They didn't come on your side. They're still there. The undecideds who felt that they couldn't even hold their nose to go and vote for either of the two parties, they are still there. You did not win them over. You did not. And so going forward, they will remain there. And when the time comes, once whoever is the new leader of the PNM is able to build a team of persons, and that's the plan going forward, to build a team of accomplished persons, a young team, a bright team with ideas going forward that can attract especially the young professionals, then you're all in trouble. You're all in trouble. You're going to try to solidify, your gains, but you didn't have that much gains. And if it is that you were able to get some people on board to support you this time, it's because of promises that you made. And as we see, you need only to break one of those promises, because it may be some people might have given the UNC their vote because of, out of the hundreds of promises they made, one promise resonated with that person or persons. One promise is all it takes to resonate. A man might just say, now, but I hear they say they're going to do so and so. And you see that? I could stand behind that. So I'm voting for them for that. And if you break that one promise, he ain't voting for you because none of the other promises that you made resonated with him. The PNM increased personal allowance. You all keep hearing me talk about that. Tens of thousands of citizens in this country and the public and private sector no longer pay income tax. Tens of thousands of you all. As a result of that, should this government give you all your 10% and you get your back pay, you will be paying less taxes on your back pay than you would have paid if you had gotten that back pay between 2010 to 2015. This PNM government did that. You have, some of you all have as much as $625 more going to your bank account for at least the last 2 years every month than was in 2010 to 2015 because this wicked and evil PNM government increased your personal allowance. $625 more, $7,500 more per year coming into your household. If it's a two-income household and both of you are earning more than $7,500 a month, that's an additional $15,000 in disposable income that has been coming into your household for the last 2 years that you weren't getting between 2010 to 2015. It was going to the taxman. But that wasn't enough to convince you. because you're so fixated on the 4% that you didn't realize the pay raise that you got as a result of that increase. You who not even working in the public sector got a pay raise from the government. But that you so fixated that your cousin or your mother or your father is a public servant and they pay them offering 4%. But just remember, 10%, and as Jenny was asking, that 10% is for which period? Because if you give them 10% for a particular period, understand going forward, you will have other periods that you're negotiating for. And I don't think Felicia take it anything less than 10. So in any and every negotiating period going forward, the baseline is 10%. Where are you getting the money for that? I think the last period they negotiated for was up to 2022 or something like that. So if you're going from 22 to 25, we're in 25. So when you're going from 25 to 28 or whatever is the period, they're not taking nothing less than 10%. And that is 10% on the increase that you're going and give them a 10-year C. All right? So you box yourself in a corner. Going forward, you're not accepting nothing less than 10. You better find the money to pay that 10. And then from 28 to whenever, 10% again. So that every 10% understand how much it costs in back pay and the recurrent expenditure. Well, you're going to know where my leaders go. Jenny.
MP Romain.
Yes, ma'am.
Listen now. If the social media aspect of it, you are there now. You have the experience in social media, so you'll be able to affect it, right? So I'm not worried about that. The UNC supporters, I'm sure, on the line, they know they amaze me. Because all you win and it's like all you understand what it is to enjoy all you win. And all you still here with the same conversation.
Correct.
Before they win the election. So then, all you think have victory there. All is supposed to be not even here. All is supposed to be across here. Everybody's yellow and they happy. But all you hear say tells me, the victory that all you got is hollow. Because the reality is now, will she be able to fulfill those promises? And all you know, she will not be able to. As for her being, she mind being fit, she body is weak and she mind is weak the same way. Again, I'm speaking from logical thinking. I'm not a doctor, but I have enough common sense. If you are diabetic and you don't drink hard and you don't smoke hard and you're old, it says that it will affect your kidney and it will also affect your brain cells that will start to die off. That's why she just can't remember. That's why she just slow her words. And that's why she just see her walking on her daily. Because it is affecting her whole system. And it is going to get worse because she is not Benjamin Button when she receding back in time and getting younger. She is getting more frail and her mind is going. So there's nothing to celebrate for PN and the UNC winning. Okay, the PNM lost. And as somebody said, yes, I'm hurting. It's hurting me bad. You know why? I am looking forward to a country that will separation will not stop. So that's why it's hurting me because children out of Tobago lost. All in win nothing. The separation all was calling about we suffer. All you will not all here, not me, you know. All you will now start to see the separation. I will say it again. The 18-year-old to the 45-year-old didn't know nothing about with IMF. Them something born at and so much children here. They didn't understand. So you talking IMF and all that. It's about them. But I'm going to tell you the way how the UNC is going, the way how the world is going, geopolitics is going, all that kind of thing, their record expenditure, they won't have a choice but to go to the IMF. And when that happens, pensions could be at risk. Grants will be at risk. The public service will be at risk. Food prices will skyrocket. Investors will ride out. Businesses will close down. And we will remain in a state with all the IMF wanted for me to make back the monies. So all of us understand what it is say green stick and sprinkle salt with some oil on it. All of us understand what it is just to boil the dal, just so and put some salt on it. All of us understand what sugar water to drink and put some ice if you have ice. Because they will privatize water. They will privatize tinted. And the subsidies that will enjoy, all the subsidy will come up and will get the full price. So it cannot know. Everybody say it's one thing not able. It was, but subsidies are there. All subsidies have to go. You'll have to pay the brunt. You might even start now. The hospital, you have to go in the spanking new hospital with your insurance card because free medical care? No, I am not into that. Free tertiary education? No. Plenty of lecturers want to fly back from America and the grenade and all that because they can't finish study because they don't have the money to pay because it's free no more. So UNC winning. It's nothing to be happy about. And that is why the supporters here today still talking as if they didn't win. It's because they understand that UNC, especially this UNC, cannot take this country forward. We're going backward again, but you know what we go there? You go hear the corruption start to talk, and who takes the money, and who takes the... They're only going to see me badly, but again, I see this as an opportunity for something different to come. And as for the social media and the PR and all that, I am confident now that the PNM will have a robust PR and a robust social media platform that will put the information out there. So by the time it's election time, people will understand all the things that they were telling them. It will seem so muddled and so hard. They will understand it because the PNM will be putting it out there and teaching it. The schools will come back with it, teaching it, political schools, and all the organization and all the organs will come back properly and will teach. So by the time it's election again, the population will be well informed. Not to make an emotional decision because I like red or I like yellow, but they will make an informed decision based on facts and information. I'm confident the People's National Movement is going back into office. Because what has happened, them just come and mash up the country, mash up the economy, and people go, oh God, to the PNM, and the PNM just come and steady the ship, hold it tight, and then they go back in the ship. But it's because of the PR machine and the social media machine why the PNM does end up in some problem. But this time around, sooner once, sooner twice, not three times. This time going to be different, stronger, better. New PNM coming again, suited for this new environment, this new age. And let me tell you something, only watch out. Chris, June, Winston, Bachelor, and all here, don't worry on yourself, darling. Only laugh and skin. No, we would have laughed to anything. This is no problem. But let me tell you, the national keep coming. Only go be the road, only hand and only head and body. Oh God! You know, most of the Alexander say, trust me, go spin right back on and only the one go be able to go, oh God! You see that? Oh God, where are we? Where's the outlaw? Oh God! I want my money. I lost no work. I just drove back my key and everything. I can't pay for my house. Oh God! This is just my car. Trust me, comment down. It's only last now. Don't worry, listen. Yes, I'm hurting. He's hurting for Trinidad and Tobago. That his feet will step back 5 years again. That's why we're hurting. I'm not afraid to admit that. And I'm a jammet. I am not no jam. I'm a jammet and I'm proud to be a jammet because you don't understand as soon as Chris, what is a jammet? I'm a jammet and I'm right here. I'm red and I'm ready and I'm responsible. Have a blessed day, MC Mulane.
Thank you, Jen. So all positions will be up for challenge at the next PNM convention. People need to understand something, right? So a decision has to be made with respect to choice of our opposition leader. But we can't only look at today. You have to understand that when choosing who's going to be the opposition leader, understand that the wider PNM membership doesn't have a say in that. Okay? Ideally, or essentially, that decision is left up to the 13 of us who would be sitting in the parliament on the opposition bench. Having said that, we need to look at it from the context of what could happen when the leadership election takes place, right? Because now that the general election has passed, the outcome is known, we can now go into a leadership election. Who the challengers are going to be, we do not know. But if we choose an opposition leader and then when the internal election comes along, the membership decides that they want somebody else to be the leader of the party, then what do we do? Do we know? And if that person is in the parliament, then we will now depose the person who was selected as and understand it's a selection, It's a selection of opposition leaders. So do we now remove that person to have the person who was elected by the electorate or the membership of the party now sit as opposition leader? So so in making the decision as to who is going to serve as opposition leader going forward, we have to be mindful of who are the likely candidates who will be presenting themselves, and perhaps these persons should make it known before the decision is made as to who the opposition leader is going to be, whether or not they will be offering themselves as candidates for the leadership of the party. Okay? Because if you're not going to be offering yourself as a candidate for leadership of the party, then it don't make sense putting you as opposition leader. Because if the argument put forward before is that the opposition leader, the person leading the party in the house and the person who leads the party outside the house should be one and the same, then we need to know. So persons need to declare their hands to say, yes, I intend to contest the leadership, or no, I don't. If you say no, you don't plan to contest the party leadership, well, then it makes my choice easier as to who. Right? Because we don't want that back now. Depending on who is offering themselves, the internal election to select a new leader may or may not be a smooth one. What we do not want is infighting. What we do not want is the drawing of swords and daggers and knives and a nasty campaign. Because there may very well be slates, and we don't want what happened in the UNC to happen in the PNM, where people was calling members on other states named Makaram and Judas and traitor and all kind of nasty thing and dirty. We don't need that. The PNM now is going into a phase or a time of healing, and what we do not need is that type of infighting taking place to divide the party, when we should be coalescing to rebuild, as somebody mentioned before. Even though we shouldn't, and it's not about rebuilding, the infrastructure is there. The infrastructure is there. What the party needs to do now is to go out and talk to our membership. Go out and talk to the membership. There are still people who are hurting, people who are vexed with certain decisions that the government made. They remain loyal to the party, but they were just upset with certain decisions the government made, and the government did not do a good job of explaining to the people, did not do a good job of talking to our supporters. And there was a lot of noise all over the place, and people were just upset. And they decided that they're not coming out. They did not support the UNC, which is a plus for us. All right? It is a plus for us. They did not support the UNC. So it says that they are still there. They are still available to support the party, but we need to engage them. And that's what we're going to do going forward. All right? So I'm just making that point. We will see how things go from there. So, yeah. Interesting times ahead, folks. So, see here. Right. So, folks, it's after 9. And I remember I told you guys that you still have the opportunity, if you want to have a say with respect to the next political leader of the People's National Movement when the convention comes along, you need to go out and you need to become a member of the party. So if you're not a member, you could get your application form, whether you go down to Balize House or you find out who is your constituency executive chairman or whatever. You might know somebody who's in a party group, talk to them, they could get the application form for you, you fill it out, you have it signed. It has to be endorsed by a member of the party, and send in your form. There is still time for you to become a member so that you could vote in our internal election and have a say as to who the next leader of the People's National Movement will be. Okay, so please do that. Do that. Whichever constituency you live, you want to be able to vote, join the party so that we could get these forms in early so that they could be reviewed and General Council could approve your membership, and then your name could be put on the membership list so you could cast your ballot whenever we have the internal election. All right, I did hear Dr. Rowley say that would have been in September, but it is not cast in stone and it could happen at any time. No, right? Because we're not in government, so there's nothing preventing us now from having those elections sooner rather than later. Okay, so just putting that away. So folks, enjoy your day. Let me run across to I'm see this person here, Natalie, still talking race, typical PNM. Why do you all always like to accuse the PNM of talking about race? The PNM has a leader who is mixed. Well, our previous prime minister was mixed, right? We saw the reception that Stuart Young got at the rally last weekend. Come on now, man. You always talk about what the PNM talking about race and the PNM talking about race. When Kamala Persad could try to dismiss corruption that allegedly took place under her administration, where there is hardcore evidence, where a high court judge, appeal court judges, and the Privy Council all said that these persons who stand accused have a case to answer based on the evidence that is before them. And rather than admit that, Persad Bissessar will come and tell you that no, that's not true. The evidence that you're seeing before you, that is not true. That is made up. That is just the PNM propaganda trying to make all East Indians look like they are thieves. How would that become a race thing? How would that become a race thing? When you know, and some of you all accept that nonsense. But you didn't condemn Persad Bissessar for that. When she said on a platform that if all East Indians voted for the UNC, the PNM could never get the 51% needed to form the government. That wasn't race talk. When Anil Roberts did his comparative to talk about you have a man and you have two girls you're courting, one is a East Indian and one is African, and the African girl only making you spend your money, and she wants you spend your money on weave and wig, and she wants you to take her to the most expensive restaurant, and she wants the most expensive food, and you always had to be giving her money for her nails and so on. But the East Indian girl, she don't want much, she just want to go for a little drive, and she will settle for some doubles and or a little KFC. And then the African girl, after you spend all your money on her, and they take her back home, make her even get a little kiss or a little hold hand. But the East Indian girl, she rubbing your back and rubbing your head and giving you a massage, and she taking care of your children and all of these different things, and she helping you out, and she know that you need a job, a better job, and she putting you on to people and stuff and things. That wasn't race. And he asked you, which one would you choose? The East Indian or the African? Who he painted as being somebody who is a gold digger, a waste of time, right? Bringing nothing of value to the table, but they're the East Indian girl bringing so much to the table. That wasn't race. But you all don't hear these things. When they were trying to gaslight PNM supporters and telling them, look at the PNM supposed to be an African party, but look who Rowley have as the ministers holding the big ministry positions. Look who he have as Minister of Works and Transport, an Indian. And look who he have as the Minister of Finance, a local white. And look who he have as the Minister of Agriculture, an East Indian. And who he has as the Attorney General. When Anil Roberts was telling you that, as PNM supporters, why you shouldn't support the PNM? Because all of these positions should only be held by persons of African descent, because the PNM is supposed to be an African party, but Rowley has an ethnically diverse cabinet. When Anil Roberts was telling you that, that wasn't race. That wasn't race. You all need to stop with this nonsense, sir. With the PNM always blowing the racial dog whistle and so on. That is not the PNM that does that. You all need to stop that. When Dr. Rowley went down to Southwood Carnival and the East Indian girl gave him a wine, where they come and tell you all these different things, they point these things out. When they come to tell you, anyway, I don't need to rehash that, right? Everybody who like to say that the PNM always in talking race is rubbish. Because if you go on social media now, the people who putting out all the racist posts and using the N-word, flagrantly, they don't care. Some of them talking now about for the last 10 years that they had to hide their true selves, and now they could come out and say what they want to say and thing, and they're using racial slurs and they don't care. Right? It's not coming from the PNM. And you would notice that when the PNM lost, yes. But unlike what happened in 2015 and 2020, you didn't see a whole slew on Facebook about cockroach and monkey and all them kind of thing, and people talking about telling East Indian businessmen to increase the prices of their products for persons of African descent, and telling doubles vendors to put feces in the doubles for people of African descent. You didn't see the PNM coming out and set up big comments on Facebook talking about boycott East Indian business and do buy doubles and all them kind of thing. You're not seeing that from the PNM. That is the fundamental difference that you all need to take. Because when the PNM lose, we take our licks. We take it. Right? We accept. And we're not talking and notice the difference. Who we blaming for our loss? The PNM and the PNM supporters. We're not blaming and saying, well, the UNC vote based on race and that all your votes on race. We're not saying that. We saying it's our PNM people, regardless of their race, who chose not to go and vote. That is why we lost. Not because UNC supporters chose to vote on race, which many of them did. But you're not seeing the PNM talking about that and blaming and saying that is why we lost. Unlike the UNC, when they lost, rather than identify the shortcomings of their own party, which resulted in their loss, and blaming the leader. And we are not afraid to say what our shortcomings were. Instead, the 2 times that they lost is because PNM people chose to vote on race is why they lost. Rather than accepting, but we accept that the fault was on our end, shortcomings on our side. It has nothing to do with UNC supporters choosing to vote race. They remained with their base. And that is very well so, but they didn't get any extra votes. They chose to vote race, which is what they always do, but that is not why we lost. We don't fault them for being loyal to their party regardless, loyal to a fault to their party because of regardless of what their party did and the shortcomings of their leadership. And the seeming support of their leadership and the people that the leader chooses to hold senior positions. And that's the fundamental difference between the PNM and the UNC. Whereas we could identify our shortcomings and highlight it, and we are not afraid to speak about it. We are not saying that you all win. And talking to the UNC supporters here, we are not saying you all win because you chose race, even if that is the case. But that didn't help you all. Your numbers didn't go up because of that. Right? You all were able to spend money and bribe people to vote for you all. You all were able to use misinformation, lies, and propaganda to convince some people to come and support you. But in the main, you were able to convince enough PNM people not to vote for PNM. Right? So when you all can never hold the upper hand when it comes to that. That's the difference between the 2 parties. You all blame everybody else for your losses in 2015 and 2020 rather than look within to see what was the real cause of your loss. We in the PNM, we're not doing that. Those who fell short, whether it be because of policies that were made that were unpopular and we didn't talk to the population, whether it be we fell short in social media, wherever we fell short, we acknowledge our shortcomings. And we're not going to do like what the UNC does and blame everybody else except themselves. Right? And we will always hold the upper hand for that. Zina. Call me back there, Zina. I don't know what happened there. Street should be named after all fire victims, not only PNM MPs. Well, okay. A mother and daughter died 2 years ago in a house fire in Siparia. All right? So let's see if Kamla Prasad-Bissessar is going to name a street after the 2 of them. You see, it's easy for you to come here, Chris, and talk that. But your leader is now the prime minister. So call on her to name a street or 2 streets in Siparia, her constituency, after that mother and daughter who were her constituents who died in that fire. Please, don't be a hypocrite. Don't be a hypocrite. We know why it is that Lisa Morris Julian Boulevard was named that, because Lisa was the member of parliament for the constituency. She did a lot of work in the constituency, and we felt that that was a good way to honor her legacy. All right? We thought so, because she was the sitting MP at the time of her death, and all of the work that she did. And if you were to come in Malabar Mausika, formerly Dabadi Omera, and you were to walk in places like Malabar and Dabadi and Old Town Road, Reed Lane, all of these different places, in Lawrence Park and La Chance and Samaru Village and Unityville, and you talk to people and ask them about Lisa, come in Malabar phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, all of these places, and they will tell you the work that Lisa did and why she was deserving of that. So when you just want to name a street and you know, you all play petty politics with the most silly of things. But then let's see, put your money where your mouth is. Call on your leader to name 2 streets in Siparia, her constituency, after that mother and daughter who died in that fire. But you wouldn't do that. But all streets must be named after everybody who died in a fire. Well, then maybe we should name streets after anybody who was murdered too, since we want to be ridiculous with it. You always come with some of the most ridiculous and nonsensical things, you know. The little things that you all try to make an issue about. Right? It have streets named and anyway. I'm not going on that road, sorry. I'm not going on that road, sorry, at all. Folks, it is 9:46. I see my phone ringing off the hook. People, my folks calling me about this recount, so I'm going to deal with that. And yeah, I have some stuff to deal with. So it was a pleasure. Somebody say, like Kamla, when you touch those sides. Melka says, right now we need to have consultations with people of constituencies before the local elections. Indeed, I will certainly be doing that in my constituency. Are you calling the PNM supporters stupid or gullible? The PNM supporters was not influenced by the UNC not to vote. Bachelor, didn't you hear me tell you? And I said it before. Based on my experience, I gave you the example of the old man who said he wanted nothing to do with the PNM again. He was PNM all his life. And he wanted nothing to do with the PNM because of that issue with the pension. And no matter how I tried to explain it to him, he wasn't moving. The reason why the UNC spent money on these ads was to convince people. And obviously, who designed these ads, they knew exactly what to say and how to say it to convince people, because there were people who were convinced. You see, the same way how you convinced that $2.6 billion missing, and no matter how I try to explain it to you, you still holding on that $2.6 billion missing, is the same thing. So should I call you stupid because you, or should I interpret that as you being stupid because no matter how I try to explain it to you, you're just not letting it go? The same way you come back with this thing about Dr. Rowley said that he wasn't supporting, he would not support the UNC and whatever it is. And I explained to you, this is not the first time you have come here with that. I explained to you the context in which that was said. It's not the first time, it's not the second time, but you come back with it again. Should I interpret that as you being stupid because no matter how I try to explain the facts and the truth to you, that you're still coming back with it? So if that is your interpretation of me telling you that the UNC spent money and sent out misinformation, and because the government did not respond to that misinformation in the way that they should have, because they failed to do that. And I am saying that is what we did. We did not do a very good job in debunking some of the lies that the UNC puts out there. I tried to do it here. Jenny tried to do it on her platform and others. But the fact of the matter is we needed it to be done from a party perspective across all of our social media platforms, and we did not do that. And as a result of that, that is why some people were fooled, because they're hearing the lies, but they're not hearing a rebuttal from the PNM saying this is not true. And when we did, and a few times that we did attempt to provide a rebuttal, we didn't do a very good job of that either, because we didn't decide to go and spend millions of dollars to hire big fancy public relations companies and hire foreigners whose specialty is that, to bring them to come and create a campaign of misinformation. And that is what the UNC did. When Prasad Bisesa was talking about inheritance tax, people bought into that. When it is that they painted the property tax in such a way as the government, when you want to tax people, what we should have been doing is showing people that contrary to the UNC stating that we are a tax, that the PNM was a taxing government, we should have highlighted all the different ways in which the PNM provided tax relief. I talked about the reduction, the increase in the personal allowance, the reduction in VAT, the increase in the minimum threshold for stamp duty for first-time homeowners from $850,000 under Kamla Prasad Bisesa to $2 million, which means you could purchase a property as a first-time homeowner that cost up to $2 million and pay no stamp duty, which means you would save tens of thousands of dollars in closing costs associated with stamp duty. You could save that money and add an additional room to your house, or use that to furnish your home or something. We didn't focus on that. The government removed VAT on cell phones, on computers, on tablets, on desktops, all of these things to be able to make it cheaper for people to buy. We provided tax relief in that regard, but we didn't talk about that. We didn't tell the population that. When Kamla Prasad Bisesa was claiming that Rowley put back VAT on 7,000 food items that she took VAT off, that was not true. All the basic food items that people buy, like rice and flour and sugar and peas and all these things, The VAT, Dr. Oli and the PNM never put back VAT on those things. But Kamala was out there and the UNC was out there telling people, Rowley put back VAT on the 7,000 food items. And they knew it was not true. And all they had to do was go and Google it. But we did not do a very good job of rebutting that and telling the people that is not true. You hear Dr. Rowley mention it once or twice at meetings. But in terms of ensuring that that was put out there on social media and that it is constantly in people's ears, we didn't do that. I have read for you all numerous times the article on that Guardian article, VAT on food flops, that showed where 4 months after they removed the VAT on the 7,000 food items, as they claim, the prices actually went up. And when it is the reporter and so on spoke to the then Minister of Trade and Minister of Agriculture, Vassan Bharat, he said that if that was so, it is very unfortunate, but there is nothing else the government could do to be able to bring down the cost of food. And he was very disappointed in the business entities that had chosen to increase the cost of food, right? And increase those prices to the detriment of the citizens. He said that. I read that article so many times. The case in point with the UNC stating where they stated in their manifesto that a new UNC government coming into office would do an assessment of all those state enterprises which to make a determination which should remain in government hands and which ones would serve better in private sector hands. You saw, or how long you all hear me talking about that? In the last few days before the election, a week or so, we see the PNM bring out an ad where Kamala Persad-Bissessar, in delivering her budget response, stated that. But that video was there all the time. We should have that ad that they brought out there with her saying that should have been done months ago. Months ago, because it wasn't last week or last month she said that. That should have been done months ago and put out on social media for the people to see. So when they're talking about the PNM shut down the refinery and they closed down Petrotrin, the UNC supporters talking all the time about the government, they're selling all the state assets and selling all the state assets. But in their manifesto, which you can't see now, which they take off I'm seeing people saying they removed it from the website. They stated that they would do that. And let me just give me 1 second, caller. Let me just pull this up here and read exactly what it says. Right? Exactly what it says. Let me get it here before I jump up. Because I see my phone ringing off the hook and I know why people calling, man. Anyway, we'll deal with it. I don't like being, anyway, let me not go there. So let me get this here. Right? It says, following consultations, a new UNC government will review, assess, and determinations will be made on which enterprises the state may want to continue to hold on to on behalf of the people. 2, which would serve the country better if they were out of government's hands. What does that mean? Which would serve the country better if they are out of government hands. So the government will no longer hold on to these. They would give it to the private sector. Then they go on to say, which would do better as public-private partnerships. We will gradually divest selected non-strategic state enterprises. What does divest mean? When you say you're going to divest, you're going to put it into the private hands, and then they go on to say, we will gradually reduce the level of state ownership or remove government from several state enterprises which have no strategic national importance or are a financial drain and have no prospect of viability. These functions should be better carried out by the business sector. That's what it's saying. Transform remaining state enterprises into publicly owned companies. We will capitalize the remaining state enterprises if necessary, placing up to 49% of their shareholding on the local stock market. For who to buy? The average citizen, if they're suffering and struggling, they have no money to go and buy no shares on the stock market. So who's going to buy it up? We should have been pushing this. I have been pushing this on this platform for months. That should have been done a long time. This should have been put out there and let people know, and that should have been put in a meme. You see the same way kick out the PNM like to do these things? They were working overtime. We weren't doing that. So again, that ad with Kamala saying that should have been running on social media for months now. We didn't do that. We waited until the last minute when most people had already made up their minds who they were going to vote for. That is where we fell short. So it's not so when you come and tell me about, if I say in PNM people are stupid. It's not about me saying PNM people are stupid. The UNC ran an excellent social media campaign. Excellent, and they must be commended for that because it achieved the objective, which was to fool people. And in the absence of a response with the truth, then people will believe what if the PNM is saying is a lie, well then it must be true. Simple as that. I'm gonna take this last call. Hello, good morning. Hello. Hello.
Dominic?
Hi, morning.
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 I want to give this morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And God said, Abashande me hundubusa. Yandere me. Remember, Asekete, I am still God. Says God, I am still on the throne, Abahanda. And says God to fear not. Because Gideon, little army, says God, Ikumundeha, routed the enemy, says God. So stand back, says God, and see, says God. See, says God, my hand is outstretched and my reward is in my hand, said God. So hold faith, people, hold faith. Gideon's army was small, says God, but he routed, says God, so much of the enemy. I am God of all flesh. And God said the nation wanted Saul, so they got this Saul. But Saul became a taskmaster. He was wicked and evil, says God. And he even went, says God, to the Shanda, to the dark ages, to the witchcraft, says God. So stand back, says God, and be not afraid, says God. So I am doing things, says God, behind the scenes. And I have there who I want there for a purpose, says God. So don't be afraid and let not your heart be troubled, says God. For I am that I am that I am, says God. I am the Alpha and the Omega and God over all things. Amen.
Amen.
Dominic, are you living again?
Huh?
I was asking God some questions. God, tell me why. Okay? And Shan, don't be fearful, because this will not last long. With Kamala, there's going to be a coup uprising in that party. You're going to hear some things that will make your foundation shake, right? Because it's all pretense. Coming will last long. And you're free to give my number out to people who want to pray. Because the army was very small. It was a very small army. Mm-hmm. But God will tell you, how well do you know the Bible? How well are you reading the Bible?
How what?
How well do you know the Bible? How well?
I would say, average, like most people.
Can I read scripture verses every day? I need to know. Don't want to but you want scripture verses for me? Scripture verses will help you go in Christ. Do you want any for me?
I'll call you after.
No problem.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Right. So, all right. So, folks, we will chat again at some time. I can't tell you. I won't guarantee if I'll be on Sunday, but we'll see how things go. Because I said this platform was created in the main really to have influenced a particular outcome on Monday, which didn't happen. Some people listened, some people didn't. I'm sure there are some people who listen religiously to this program and still didn't go out and vote. So I don't know what else to say. So, but let me just take Zena here and then, yeah. Zena.
I sent you something and I want you to read it. It is very urgent. These people are still not satisfied. It's still politicking.
Yes.
So, as I said, I heard you again, and I am asking you, the 13 of you who are going to choose wisely. We want a young, strong, dynamic army going forward, and we ain't thinking about who just a leader in the parliament, an opposition leader who could just hug and kiss you and sweet and when they meet in the market, they love you. We want that, as well as we want an overall person who is good to take the
then will build a party until I know. I'm going to have to bring it to our graves and tell us. So, go with God today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I see Nika is asking. Nika, the number is 461-8471. 461-8471. So just to read this before I go, so I saw Dr. Oli put out a statement. Of course, with all the noise and the blame game and all of that is taking place now. He said, on January 6, 2025, I indicated my intention to step down as political leader of the People's National Movement, with the party holding a convention to elect a new political leader in September. In March, on my last day in office as Prime Minister, I informed the country that although my term as political leader legally runs until 2026, it was my intention to vacate this position at the earliest opportunity in consultation with the leadership of the movement. Today, I will address the General Council and tender my resignation as political leader of the PNM, which will take effect from tomorrow, Thursday, the 1st of May, 2025. This completes my disengagement, firstly in the government, March 16, 2025, and finally in the party, May 1st, 2025. I offer my sincere thanks to all for the opportunity to be of service in the various offices. I extend my best wishes to the PNM and the nation. May Almighty God continue to bless us all in this nation of Trinidad and Tobago. So as Dr. Oli has said, he will tender his resignation today, and tomorrow his resignation as political leader of the People's National Movement will take effect. Right? And so he will no longer be a part of the leadership of the party, effective tomorrow. And see, and that's the difference. That's the difference right now. If you Kamla doing that, but I want to take you all to take note. Kamla Prasad Bisesa, is more than likely this will be her last term as a parliamentarian. All right, and we know her state of health. We don't know if she would be strong enough, robust enough to last a full 5 years. But rest assured, should she not be, and I'm not wishing anything on her, whoever is going to be her replacement, there's going to be bacchanal and upheaval, because there are plenty of them, like wolves waiting to snatch. Plenty of them, right? So, as I said, the next 5 years is going to present drama. And we would have heard in her first term, when she was younger and stronger, that there was a cabal that was controlling her. You feel that cabal ain't coming back? Now you have an expanded cabal, a more diverse cabal this time around. Okay? She's not as strong as she used to be. She's not as healthy as she used to be. I know you're going to have more wolves whispering in her ears. At least in the first incarnation in 2010 to 2015, the people around her, some of them had integrity, like Winston Dukaran and Sipasad Bichan, they had integrity. So at least we could say, well, they know they might temper the corruption and so on. But they weren't able to do that because they were quickly sidelined. Now you have a set of hungry mouth, eater food bastards who are around her, right? Who come in for their £1.5 pound of flesh. Because all of them, when they look at it, they see the same thing we see. They didn't win because they were able to convince the population to vote for them. They won because PNM people chose to stay away. And they know that at any time, the PNM is able to once again present itself to its supporters and membership to rally them and to rally the Red Army. They will come back. And as I said before, they got probably over 350-something thousand votes. And all it would have taken is less than 20,000 votes shared in the right constituencies, and the PNM would have put a curtail on them. Because in the local election, they got almost 200,000 votes. The PNM got 130,000, and we were able to hold on to our 7 corporations with 130. So they know that. They know that you did not win the confidence of the population. The population didn't come out in large numbers and vote for you because they believe you could present something better. You were able to fool a significant portion of the population in 2010 because you had persons who were perceived to be persons of integrity. People like Vernon De Lima and Timothy Hamel-Smith and these guys who are no longer there. So when you compare those guys, Winston Dukaran and all these others, with the likes of Philip Alexander and the likes of Roger Alexander and people like this guy, oh gosh, Lennox Smith. Even though Lennox, I understand they had some issues with respect to some differences because they felt that when they were putting up the advertisements that they didn't put their symbol and so on, and they were not giving prominence to them. But people like Prakash Ramada, who has shown himself to be a man who lacks integrity, and you have Anand Ramlogan coming back on the scene. All of these things, even if persons were contemplating giving their vote to the UNC, those persons who genuinely want better for this country, seeing these people, were turned off. And they were upset with the PNM. They were upset. And they talk about PNM arrogance. Are we not going to say no, hubris? Comments that were made by certain people that in my mind, when I heard it, I said, Lord, why is the PNM always inclined to making unforced errors? You must be able to understand when you see it at things like that, how it's going to affect people. And that statement that Imbert made about we raise gas once, we raise gas twice, and then riot yet, so I raise it a third time. That did not age well. That statement was made, since 2016 or 2017, and to date, it still featured prominently in 2025. As politicians, you need to mind your mouth and know what you are saying, because you may not, while it may not be your intention, it comes across as insensitive, and people will hold you for that. And a lot of things were said that people remember. I mean, as I said, people didn't mean anything by it, but Mr. Scotland's statement about the coal pot and the bike, people took that to heart and they felt offended by it. They felt offended by it and they went on with that. And so we need to be mindful of what we say. Even if it's not your intent, it may come across as you being insensitive and uncaring, and that alone could turn people off from you. So all of these are things, all these things came together and it was just a cauldron of mess. So again, statements made years ago came back to haunt us. And I hope going forward that we would be more mindful of these things and what we see. Because when people hearing that and then they hear Kamala talking about all of me I give to you and the next half belongs to you and all of these things and I love you and all of that. But they compare and they say, but we never hear Rowdy say he love we and all of these comparatives are being made. And they just knew the right things to say to move some people. So we need to be mindful as members of parliament that we are going there because people put us there. They didn't put us there so that we could go and enjoy whatever perks. That is not why they put us there. When they come and they sit down in your office, they come with genuine needs and issues and concerns that they hope you could help with. And even if you can't help and you try, go back and let the people know you tried. That's what is important. That helps. And the UNC were able to pretend as if they care and they love and so much, but their ultimate goal was to get back into office, to thief, and there will be thieving. They say when UNC wins, everybody wins. No, not everybody wins. And you will soon see that not everybody wins. But all of them who repeating that and singing that and chanting that and coming here now, who supporting that party, they know that. They will have friends. Because all how they discuss PNM and say some of them have PNM friends too and have PNM family members too. And when they see they start to lose their jobs and all of that, I hope all you remember when UNC wins, everybody wins. Remember that. All they sold that BS to a lot of people. And now they're waiting. You promised and they come in for the promise. And now people asking for the promises to be delivered ASAP. And the UNC supporters, the hardcore supporters vex. Oh, the government they come in power yet. What were them to do? And all that. No, you made these promises. They're not giving you no honeymoon. They don't want to hear that. So from day one, as you come in, they want to hear from next week, the price of fuel going and drop. You promised that. You all promised the people that the cost of living is going to come down. The food prices and the groceries is going to come down. They expecting to see that. They ain't waiting no 6 months. They want to see that immediately. And you cannot do it because no government will go and tell the owner of a supermarket to drop your prices. Because when the man telling you can't tell me to drop my prices, I opened this business to make profit. And you don't know how much money I had to pay for the US to be able to bring in my goods and so on to put in my grocery. You don't know what costs it involved. And I had to spend money on security and spend money on this and all of that. I can't get workers. Nobody want to work for minimum wage, so I had to pay extra money. I had to make back my profit. How are you telling this man to drop the prices of his goods and services? You cannot do that. They cannot. So unless they plan to remove all of the import duties and stuff, which is going to impact government's revenue and make it more difficult for them to govern and pay. So plenty of you all public servants who on contract, when your contract is not renewed, understand, you vote for that, or you didn't vote, but you're going to get that, right? Because when they tell you, well, hey, your contract come up for renewal, but we don't have the money to pay them salaries, so we have no choice but to send you home. And we're not renewing the contract. So that is a way to send people. We don't need to have to fire people. You could just choose not to renew their contracts, and there are lots of contract workers in the public service. So I hope that Ms. Felicia Thomas will be coming to your defense. If your money was going to the PSA, I hope they're going to stand in defense of these contract workers whose contracts will not be renewed. All right? So elections have consequences. You all chose the FAFO. You FA'd, and now FO. We are about to FO. So folks, thank you all so much. Of course, yes, crime will stop. And they're going to reopen the refinery. Remember, they said they ain't signing no deal with Owando. Eh? They're in charge now. So when they run Owando, and then we're back where we were before, and they come to tell you to have no money to open the refinery because PNM thief out all the money, all who opened and was hoping to get back their work in the refinery. All right. Let me see if they're going to hand it to Roger. And where the money is going to come from for Roger to open it. And where the money is going to come from for Roger and Patriotic to import oil to fuel to service the refinery. Where are they going to? They'll go Guyana and buy it. Let them do that. Yeah. We will see. It might make more sense to just build a new refinery with a lesser capacity, like how Guyana was planning to build a refinery that could process 30-something thousand barrels of oil, rather than to go and spend billions of dollars to restart that refinery and so on, and that we do not have. But we'll see. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt like we did last time. We have no flood today for Prasad Bisesa to start her PR campaign. She needs to leave the inauguration to put on her boots. She's not as young as she was, so she can't go and put on no boots and go and sit down in no canoe or no pirogue in ankle high water. She and Ian Allen say she coming to survey floods. Yeah? No stunts today, unfortunately. But let's see if she's going to go home in via the road, or if they already informed the National Helicopter Services to make sure that they in the Queen's Park Savannah for about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Yeah? To take her back home, because the helipad hasn't been used in a while. What's the point you have a helipad in your house in Philippines and it's not being used? So let's see if we will see a helicopter today in the Queen's Park Savannah. Of course, people like Chris has no problem with that. They cost Rowley up and down the place how much trips he took and how much it cost. So in 10 years, it costs just about $10 million in travels. But Prasad Bisesa in 5 years spent $6.1 million on helicopter rides. People like Chris and the others, they have no problem with that. That's okay. We have no problem taking taxpayers' money that you work hard for to pay for helicopter trips from the Queen's Park Savannah to Philippines. So her neighbors who were upset before about the constant helicopter noise probably keeping their fingers crossed and hope this time they wouldn't have to endure that for 5 years. All right? But just remember, as Prime Minister, she's not required to work. She doesn't have the luxury that she had as opposition leader to stay home when she wants. The Prime Minister's office has work to do. That work must be done. So she can't endure that traffic twice a day from where she lives. So if she chooses not to stay in the Prime Minister's residence this time, prepare to spend your taxpayers' money on helicopter rides. Thank you so much, Winston. I gave you a rough time because you made it difficult to not to. All right? So, folks, we will chat again soon. All right? As I say, I'm not quoting, I'm not stating when, but we'll see what happens. Yes, Aries Bond says, gas up the helicopter. All you call National Helicopter Services. Tell them we need one specifically for the PM. So, so folks, we'll chat again. Look out for you'll see the notification comes up. All right? But, yeah. So enjoy your day. Make it a productive one, as I always say. Keep safe, and we will chat again soon. All right?